Welcome to this space of rest. You've arrived at this moment after a long day. Your body has carried you through hours of activity, decision-making, interaction, effort. Your mind has processed countless inputs, solved problems, navigated complexity. Your emotions have responded to the full spectrum of human experience. And now you can rest. This recording will guide you through 150 wisdom teachings drawn from ancient sources, but translated into universal language accessible to everyone, regardless of belief system or background. These insights have helped countless people find peace, perspective, and rest. They will do the same for you tonight. You don't need to follow a particular religion to benefit from this. You don't need to believe anything specific. You simply need to be willing to rest, to let go, to allow yourself to be held by something larger than your individual effort. Over the next hours, you'll hear teachings about trust and fear, about suffering and joy, about loss and finding, about darkness and light. You'll encounter wisdom about how to live well, how to navigate difficulty, how to find meaning in the midst of chaos. But your only task tonight is not to understand everything or remember every word. Your only task is to rest. So settle in now. Let your body sink fully into whatever surface holds you. Feel the weight of your head on the pillow. Notice the temperature of the air on your skin. Sense the darkness around you, not as threat, but as sanctuary. Not as emptiness, but as the container that makes rest possible. Take a slow breath in through your nose. Fill your lungs completely. And release it slowly through your mouth, letting go of everything you've been holding. Again, breathe in peace, stillness, quiet. Breathe out tension, worry, the need to control anything. Once more, breathe in the simple fact of being alive in this moment. Breathe out everything else. Your nervous system is beginning to shift now from activity to rest, from sympathetic to parasympathetic, from doing to being. This is natural. This is what bodies are designed to do. You don't have to force anything. Simply allow the natural process of settling, of softening, of letting go. As we move through these teachings, you may drift in and out of full consciousness. This is perfect. This is exactly what should happen. Let yourself float on the words like a boat on gentle waves. Let them carry you deeper into rest without trying to hold on to them. Your jaw can soften. Your shoulders can drop away from your ears. Your belly can be soft, rising and falling with each breath. Your legs can grow heavy, releasing into gravity. Even your thoughts can begin to slow down, to space out, to become less urgent and demanding. There is nowhere you need to be except here. Nothing you need to do except rest. No one you need to impress or please or take care of. For these hours, you are released from all obligation except the obligation to let yourself be held, be carried, be restored. The ancient teachers who first shaped these wisdom sayings understood something essential about human beings. We need rest not just for our bodies, but for our souls. We need to know that we're held by something larger than ourselves, that we're part of a pattern greater than our individual lives, that our existence has meaning within a larger whole. Whether you understand that larger whole as the universe, as nature, as consciousness itself, as the fundamental fabric of reality, as the mysterious ground of being, however you conceptualize it, you can rest in it tonight. You can trust that you are held, known, valued within the vast interconnected web of existence. Let us begin this journey together. Let yourself sink deeper with each teaching. Let the words wash over you like warm water, like gentle rain, like the whisper of wind through leaves. You are safe here. You are welcome here. You can rest here. Breathe slowly and let's begin. Part 1. Foundations of inner peace. 2 paths, 1 choice. There is a way of living that leads to flourishing, to genuine well-being, to sustainable peace, to a life that feels meaningful and aligned. And there is a way of living that leads to emptiness, to chronic dissatisfaction, to self-destruction, to a life that feels hollow despite external success. This is not religious morality. This is simply observation of how things work. Certain patterns of thought and behavior lead to certain outcomes. Certain choices create certain consequences. This is as reliable as gravity. Imagine a tree growing beside a stream. Its roots reach deep into the earth, drawing water from underground sources. Its leaves stay green even during drought. Its fruit comes in season without force or strain. This tree doesn't worry about flourishing. It simply stays connected to its source of nourishment and naturally becomes what it was designed to become. You can be like this tree, not through effort or achievement, but through connection, staying rooted in what is real, drawing nourishment from sources deeper than your conscious awareness, trusting that growth and fruit will come naturally when you maintain alignment with reality itself. The alternative is like dry chaff blown by wind, lightweight, rootless, going wherever the current takes it. Without depth, without connection, without foundation. Such a life is scattered, directionless, unable to stand firm when tested. Tonight, as you rest, consider your roots. What are you drawing nourishment from? What sustains you beneath the surface of daily activity? What grounds you when everything else is shaking? You don't need to change anything right now. Simply notice. Simply become aware. Awareness itself is the beginning of transformation. Let your roots sink deeper tonight. Let yourself draw from sources of wisdom and strength you may not even be conscious of. Trust that while you rest, the work of growth continues beneath the surface, invisible but real. The universe knows the way of flourishing. Reality itself has patterns that lead to life. You can align with these patterns not through religious belief but through honest observation, through trial and error, through paying attention to what actually works. Sleep as one whose roots are growing deeper. Sleep as one who is connected to sources of nourishment beyond your understanding. Sleep knowing that growth comes from connection, not from striving. The natural order. Why do societies fall into chaos? Why do leaders pursue self-destructive policies? Why do communities work against their own flourishing, resist patterns that sustain life, fight against the natural order that could support their well-being? There is a structure to existence. There are patterns in how things work. There are natural laws, not religious commandments, but observable principles that govern human flourishing, just as physical laws govern falling objects or growing plants. We can cooperate with these patterns or exhaust ourselves fighting them. We can align with these principles or waste energy denying them. But we cannot change them. We cannot escape them. We cannot live sustainably at odds with how reality actually functions. Every society that has tried to build itself on lies has eventually collapsed. Every individual who has lived fundamentally misaligned with reality has eventually suffered. This is not divine punishment. This is simply consequence, the natural result of being out of sync with how things actually work. You are part of this natural order. Your existence is not random accident, but expression of something fundamental in the universe. The tendency of matter to organize itself into increasingly complex forms, the emergence of consciousness from the raw material of existence, the drive toward meaning and connection that characterizes human experience. Tonight, stop fighting against the basic patterns of your own nature. Stop rebelling against the need for rest, for connection, for meaning, for something larger than your individual concerns. These needs are not weaknesses. They are part of being human, part of being conscious, part of participating in existence itself. You are designed to belong to something larger than yourself. This is not religious sentiment, but biological and psychological fact. Humans are social creatures who suffer in isolation and flourish in healthy connection. We need to feel part of something beyond our individual survival. This is built into our nervous systems, our brain chemistry, our evolutionary history. When you align with this reality, when you acknowledge your need for rest, for connection, for meaning, you stop wasting energy on rebellion and can begin actually living. Sleep tonight as one who accepts rather than fights your own nature. Sleep as one who cooperates with rather than resists the patterns that sustain life. Sleep knowing that you are part of a natural order that holds you, includes you, makes space for you. Surrounded by support. Perhaps right now, as you lie here, you're aware of problems waiting for you tomorrow, challenges unsolved, difficulties that feel overwhelming, opposition from people or circumstances that seem too strong to handle. Perhaps voices in your mind, or actual voices from others, have told you there's no help available, no way through, no reason to hope for things to improve. But consider this. You are surrounded by support you may not recognize. The very fact that you're breathing right now without conscious effort means your body is maintaining incredibly complex processes. Heart beating, lungs expanding, cells regenerating, immune system patrolling, neurons firing, all without your deliberate control. You are held by gravity on this planet, spinning through space at tremendous speed, yet you feel safely at rest. You are protected by an atmosphere that filters harmful radiation while allowing life-sustaining light to reach you. You are part of an interconnected web of biological systems that have sustained life for billions of years. This is not mysticism. This is simply what's true. You are supported by layers of natural systems, by the fundamental forces that hold matter together, by the patterns that allow complex life to exist and persist. When you feel surrounded by threats, remember you are also surrounded by support. When you feel alone in facing difficulty, remember you are embedded in systems of support that work ceaselessly on your behalf without your awareness or effort. Tonight, imagine yourself surrounded, not by threats, but by protection. Not by enemies, but by the fundamental forces that sustain existence itself. Not alone, but held within the vast interconnected reality that includes everything. Your head is being lifted right now by the pillow beneath it. You don't have to hold it up. The support is there whether you think about it or not. In the same way, you are supported by realities beyond your conscious awareness, supported by the fact that the universe is structured in ways that allow for consciousness, for life, for meaning, for connection. Lie down and rest. You will wake again because the same patterns that have sustained your life until now will continue. Not because you earn it or deserve it, but because this is how existence works. Life continues. Morning comes. Support remains. Sleep surrounded by more help than you can see. Sleep knowing that the act of sleeping itself is your body's way of restoring, healing, preparing you for what comes next. Sleep as one who is held, not by magic or miracle, but by the simple, reliable patterns of how reality functions. Permission to rest. You are allowed to rest. This needs to be said explicitly because many of us have internalized messages that rest is lazy, that stopping is weakness, that we must constantly produce and achieve to justify our existence. But this is not how reality works. Even the most productive soil must lie fallow periodically. Even the strongest athletes must incorporate rest into their training. Even the most powerful engines must be turned off regularly. Rest is not the opposite of productivity. Rest is what makes sustained productivity possible. Your worth is not determined by your output. Your value is not measured by your achievements. You are intrinsically valuable simply by virtue of being a conscious being capable of experiencing existence. This is not religious belief, but philosophical recognition of the preciousness of awareness itself. On this bed, in this darkness, you can stop performing. You can stop proving. You can stop striving to be more than you are, different than you are, other than you are. For these hours, you can simply be, without judgment, without evaluation, without the need to justify your existence. Feel yourself giving permission to your body to stop working, to stop holding itself upright, to stop maintaining vigilance. Your body wants to rest. Your nervous system needs to rest. Your mind requires rest to process the experiences of the day, to consolidate memories, to restore its capacity for clear thinking. Rest is not indulgence. Rest is necessity. Your body will claim the rest it needs, whether you give permission or not, through illness, through burnout, through forced collapse if necessary. How much better to consciously choose rest before your body demands it through breakdown. Tonight, make peace with your need for rest. Make peace with your finitude, with the fact that you are not infinite energy, not unlimited capacity, not designed for perpetual motion. You are a biological organism that requires regular periods of unconsciousness to maintain health. This is not weakness. This is simply what you are. Let yourself be held by the darkness. Let yourself be supported by the simple fact that rest is what every living thing requires. Let yourself relax into the knowledge that stopping doesn't mean failing. It means being human, being realistic, being honest about your actual nature. As you close your eyes and drift towards sleep, know that you are doing exactly what you should be doing. You are being what you are designed to be. You are participating in the most natural process in the world, the rhythm of activity and rest that characterizes all life. Sleep without guilt. Sleep without shame. Sleep knowing that rest itself is productive, restorative, essential. Sleep as one who has permission to stop, to release, to simply be held by the natural processes that sustain all living things. First light. Each morning, light returns. This is perhaps the most reliable pattern in human experience. No matter how dark the night, no matter how long the hours of darkness feel, the sun rises. This has happened every day of your life. This will happen every day for the rest of your life. This teaching is about the reliability of cycles, the trustworthiness of patterns, the way existence itself demonstrates constancy through its rhythms. Day follows night. Spring follows winter. Breath follows breath. This is not religious faith, but observable fact. When you face difficulty, when problems seem overwhelming, when darkness feels permanent, when you cannot see the way forward, remember the sunrise. Remember that change is built into the fabric of existence. Remember that nothing human remains static. The very worst moments of your life have eventually shifted, moved, transformed into something else. Morning comes. This is not metaphor, but meteorology. But it's also truth about your internal experience. The darkest emotional states eventually lighten. The most intense pain eventually softens. The most overwhelming circumstances eventually shift. This doesn't mean suffering is insignificant or that pain should be minimized. It means that impermanence is the nature of all experience. Tonight, as you move towards sleep, acknowledge that tomorrow's morning will come whether you sleep well or poorly, whether you worry or rest, whether you solve problems or leave them unsolved. The planet will keep rotating, the sun will keep shining, light will keep returning. This is the kind of reliability you can trust, not because of religious belief, but because of physical law, biological rhythm, the actual structure of solar system in which we live. You cannot control whether morning comes. You don't have to make it happen. It will happen without your effort, without your anxiety, without your vigilance. In the same way, many things you worry about will resolve or transform without your constant intervention. Many problems will look different in daylight. Many fears will seem less overwhelming when you're rested. Let yourself be carried through this night by the same forces that bring morning, the rotation of the planet, the laws of physics, the reliable patterns that have characterized existence for billions of years before you were born and will continue billions of years after you're gone. You are held by these patterns. You are part of these rhythms. You don't have to create reliability. It's already present in the fundamental structure of existence. Sleep through the darkness, knowing light approaches. Sleep as one who trusts the most basic patterns of physical reality. Sleep as one who will see morning, not because you earned it, but because mornings come. They always have. They always will. The long night. But sometimes the night is very long. Sometimes darkness extends hour after hour, and morning seems impossibly distant. Sometimes you lie awake, groaning, crying, unable to find rest, unable to escape thoughts that circle endlessly, unable to ease pain that pervades your whole being. This teaching acknowledges that reality. Not every night is easy. Not every rest is peaceful. Not every darkness is comfortable. Sometimes we suffer through the hours, enduring rather than resting, surviving rather than sleeping. If this is your experience tonight, you are not alone. Millions of humans throughout history have lain awake in pain, physical pain, emotional pain, existential pain. You are participating in a universal human experience. This does not make it easier, but it does mean you are not uniquely cursed, not specially targeted, not alone in your suffering. Your tears are real. Your exhaustion is valid. Your pain is not imaginary or exaggerated. Whatever you're going through has weight, has substance, has legitimate claim to be acknowledged as difficult. And you are heard, not by a personal deity who may or may not respond, but heard in the sense that your experience registers in the fabric of reality, matters within the context of human life, has significance within the larger story of consciousness experiencing itself through countless individual lives. The long night will end, not because you deserve it to end, not because you've suffered enough, simply because nights end. This is how time works. Hours pass. Eventually dawn comes, even after the longest night. While you endure these hours, know that endurance itself is a form of courage. Continuing to breathe through pain is a form of resistance. Surviving until morning is a victory, even if it feels like mere survival. You may not sleep well tonight. You may toss and turn. You may cry. You may groan. This is all acceptable. This is all part of being human. You don't have to rest perfectly. You just have to make it through. And you will make it through, the same way you've made it through every difficult night before this one. The same way millions of others are making it through their difficult nights right now, one breath at a time, 1 minute at a time, 1 hour at a time. Tomorrow is not here yet. You don't have to face it yet. Right now, you only have to be here in this moment, breathing, existing, continuing. That is enough. You are enough. Sleep if you can, rest if possible. But if you can only endure, then endure. Your endurance is seen, is acknowledged, is honored by the simple fact that the universe itself has sustained consciousness through countless moments of suffering and continues to do so. The long night will end. Morning will come. You will see it. Justice and consequence. Life is not always fair in the moment. Bad things happen to good people. Harmful people sometimes prosper. Kindness sometimes goes unrewarded. Cruelty sometimes seems to succeed. This is the reality that troubles every thinking person. If the universe operates on reliable principles, why does it seem so random? If there are natural consequences for our actions, why do we see people violate those principles and apparently get away with it? Here is the longer view. Consequences unfold over time. Not all results are immediate. The person who builds their life on lies may succeed for years, but eventually their house of cards becomes unstable. The person who harms others may prosper for a season, but eventually they're surrounded by people who don't trust them, who avoid them, who wish them gone. This is not divine judgment. This is cause and effect playing out through complex social and psychological systems. How you treat people eventually determines how they treat you. How you treat yourself eventually determines your internal experience. How you relate to reality eventually determines what reality reflects back to you. But the timeline is often longer than we'd like. We want immediate justice, instant karma, quick consequences. Reality doesn't work on our preferred schedule. A tree planted today doesn't bear fruit tomorrow. A pattern established today doesn't reveal its full consequences for years. If you have been harmed, if you have been treated unjustly, if someone has done wrong to you and seems to suffer no consequence, know that you are seeing only a small part of a longer story. The effects of their actions ripple outward through time in ways you cannot see. The state of their internal experience is likely not as enviable as it appears. The consequences of living misaligned with reality are often invisible from outside, but very real on the inside. And if you have done harm, if you have made choices you regret, if you have caused suffering and wonder if there's any way to address that, know that consequences can sometimes be interrupted or redirected through changed behavior. You cannot undo the past, but you can stop repeating patterns that cause harm. You cannot erase what you've done, but you can become someone who no longer does those things. Tonight, release your demand for immediate justice. Release your expectation that the scales will balance quickly. Trust the longer patterns, the slower unfolding, the complex ways that choices and consequences weave through time. What you control is your own choices. What you influence is your own character. Focus there. Let the rest unfold as it will. Sleep as one who lives with integrity regardless of what others do. Sleep as one who trusts that reality has its own ways of teaching, correcting, guiding, not through supernatural intervention, but through the natural consequences that flow from being aligned or misaligned with how things actually work. The vast context. Look up at the night sky when you have the chance. If you're in a place with minimal light pollution, you can see thousands of stars with your naked eye. With a telescope, you can see millions. With advanced instruments, we've detected billions of galaxies, each containing billions of stars. The universe is staggeringly vast. Earth is a tiny blue marble orbiting an average star in an unremarkable galaxy. You are one human among billions, alive for a brief moment in the 13.8 billion year history of the cosmos. This could feel depressing, the sense of insignificance, of being small and temporary in an enormous and ancient universe. But consider another interpretation. You are the universe becoming conscious of itself. You are atoms that were forged in ancient stars now organized into a form capable of thought, feeling, meaning-making. The same physical laws that govern distant galaxies also govern your body. The same forces that hold stars together also hold you together. You are not separate from this vast cosmos. You are an expression of it, a part of it, made of it. Your consciousness, your ability to be aware, to think, to feel, to experience, is perhaps the most remarkable thing we know of in the entire universe. As far as we can tell, there are vast reaches of space where nothing is conscious, nothing experiences, nothing feels, but you do. You are aware, you experience. This is precious beyond measure. This is significant beyond calculation. Not because a deity declared you important, but because consciousness itself is apparently rare, apparently extraordinary, apparently the universe achieving something remarkable, matter organizing itself into forms capable of being aware of matter. Tonight, hold both truths. You are tiny and temporary, and you are remarkable and significant. You are a brief spark of awareness in vast space and time, and that spark is so extraordinary that it justifies your existence all by itself. You don't have to achieve anything else to matter. You don't have to accomplish great things to be significant. The simple fact that you are conscious, that you can lie here and be aware of being here, is already so improbable, so extraordinary, so precious that it requires no further justification. Sleep as a small part of something vast. Sleep as a brief moment in something eternal. Sleep as a spark of consciousness in a universe that is mostly unconscious, and let that be enough. Let your existence itself be enough. Let your awareness itself be your value. The same intelligence that somehow gave rise to galaxies and stars also gave rise to you. The same patterns that organize atoms into molecules and molecules into cells also organize those cells into your capacity to experience this moment. You belong here. You are part of this. You are made of this. Sleep in that knowledge tonight. The practice of gratitude. Even in difficulty, there are things to appreciate. Even in loss, there are things that remain. Even in pain, there are moments of relief, points of light, small mercies that sustain us. Gratitude is not denial of suffering. It is recognition that experience is complex, that multiple truths can coexist, that acknowledging what's good does not invalidate what's hard. Tonight, as you rest, let yourself notice what is actually working right now. Your breath moves without your effort. Your heart beats without your command. Your eyes close without your instructions. Your body knows how to rest even when your mind wants to stay vigilant. The darkness around you is not threatening. It's the condition that allows your eyes to rest, allows your nervous system to power down, allows your body to initiate repair and restoration processes that only happen during sleep. The silence around you, or even if there's noise, the background sounds of your environment, is familiar, is part of your life, is the soundscape of your existence. You have made it through every difficult day of your life so far. You have survived every challenge you've faced until this point. You have more resilience, more capacity, more strength than you give yourself credit for. This does not minimize current difficulty. This does not suggest that struggle is imaginary. This simply acknowledges that alongside difficulty, there is also support. Alongside challenge, there is also capacity. Alongside loss, there are also things that remain. Gratitude is not something you feel, it's something you practice. It's a choice to notice what's present rather than only what's absent, what remains rather than only what's lost, what works rather than only what's broken. Right now, what is actually, truthfully, okay? Your breath. The temperature of your room, the softness of your bedding, the fact that you have this time to rest, the simple, usually overlooked reality that you are alive, you are conscious, you are experiencing this moment. None of this erases difficulty, but it adds complexity to the story. It prevents the narrative from being only about suffering, only about loss, only about what's wrong. Tonight, practice the discipline of noticing what's right, not to deny what's wrong, but to hold a more complete picture. Not to pretend everything is fine, but to acknowledge that everything is not entirely broken. This practice changes your brain over time, literally. Neural pathways strengthen through use. The more you practice noticing what works, what remains, what's okay, the more your brain becomes skilled at this kind of noticing. You are not being Pollyanna-ish, you are being accurate. The full truth includes both difficulty and support, both loss and remainder, both what's broken and what still works. Sleep with this more complete story. Sleep knowing that gratitude doesn't deny pain but adds dimension to it. Sleep as one who can hold complexity, who can acknowledge both the hard and the good, who can be honest about struggle while also being honest about resilience. The problem that persists. But what about the problem that doesn't resolve? The injustice that continues? The suffering that persists despite your best efforts? Why do harmful people sometimes prosper? Why do good efforts sometimes fail? Why does trying hard and living well not always produce the outcomes we hope for? This is the teaching that refuses easy answers. This is the wisdom that sits with mystery rather than explaining it away. This is the honesty that admits, sometimes life doesn't make sense. Sometimes the universe seems random. Sometimes there's no clear reason, no obvious lesson, no redemptive meaning to be found in suffering. We want the story where good is always rewarded and harm always punished. We want the universe to operate like a moral accounting system where every debt is paid and every credit acknowledged. But reality is more complex than this. Consequences exist, but they're not always proportional or timely. Patterns matter, but they don't guarantee outcomes. Living well increases the probability of things going well, but it's probability, not certainty. Some people violate every principle of healthy living and die peacefully at 95. Some people do everything right and face tragedy at 35. This is not fair. This is not just. This is simply how probability works in a universe that includes randomness alongside pattern, chaos alongside order. If you're facing ongoing injustice, if someone is harming you and seems to face no consequences, the honest answer is, this is wrong, this shouldn't be happening, and yet it is happening. Your anger is valid. Your sense of injustice is accurate. The universe is not immediately correcting this wrong, and that is genuinely unfair. What do you do with this? You can work to change what can be changed. Leave the situation if possible. Seek help if available. Resist in whatever ways are accessible to you. And you acknowledge what you cannot change, that you cannot control other people's choices, cannot force consequences on their timeline, cannot make the universe operate on your preferred schedule. This is not resignation, this is realism. You act where you have agency. You accept what you cannot control. You do not waste energy demanding that reality be different than it is while also working to change what can be changed. Tonight, if you're living with persistent problems, with injustice that continues, with suffering that seems to have no end, your frustration is valid, your anger is appropriate. Your desire for things to be different is legitimate. And you can rest anyway, not because the problems are solved, not because everything is okay, but because resting is what you need to have any capacity to keep going. Fighting exhaustion is not noble, it's self-destructive. Rest so you can continue. Sleep so you to endure. The problem may still be there tomorrow, the injustice may continue. But you will face it with whatever additional capacity rest provides. This is not giving up. This is strategic restoration. Sleep with the questions unanswered. Sleep with the problems unsolved. Sleep knowing that some mysteries don't get resolved. Some injustices don't get corrected. Some suffering doesn't have meaning, and you have to keep living anyway. This is hard. This is the hardest teaching. But it's honest. and honesty is the only reliable foundation for a life that doesn't collapse when things go wrong. Sleep in the truth, sleep in the mystery. Sleep knowing that you don't have to have answers to rest, don't have to understand everything to close your eyes, don't have to resolve all problems before allowing yourself to stop for the night. Tomorrow will come with its challenges. Tonight, you rest. That's all you can do. That's all you need to do. Part 2. Trust in uncertainty. When foundations shake. What happens when everything you built your life on proves unreliable? When the job you counted on disappears? When the relationship you trusted shatters? When the belief system you organized your life around no longer makes sense? When the health you took for granted fails? When the future you planned for becomes impossible? These are not hypothetical questions. Every human life includes moments when foundations crack, when ground shifts, when what seemed solid proves temporary. In these moments, the question arises, if everything can be taken away, what can you actually depend on? If all external supports can fail, what remains? Here is what remains: the fact that you are still here, the fact that you are still conscious, the fact that you are still capable of experience, of awareness, of being present to this moment. Everything external is temporary. Every relationship will end, through growth, through change, through death. Every possession will be lost, through accident, through aging, through the simple fact that you can't take anything with you when you die. Every achievement will fade, through time, through obsolescence, through the inevitable way that all human accomplishments eventually become history. This is not pessimism, this is realism. Everything in form is temporary, everything in time is fleeting. Everything subject to change will change. What does not change? The capacity for awareness itself. The fact of consciousness, the ground of being that holds all temporary forms. You are not ultimately your thoughts. Thoughts come and go. You are not ultimately your emotions. Emotions arise and pass. You are not ultimately your circumstances. Circumstances constantly shift. You are the awareness that experiences all of this, the consciousness that witnesses thoughts and emotions and circumstances. This witnessing awareness is the foundation that cannot be shaken, not because it's supernatural, but because it's prior to everything else. Before thought, there is awareness. Before emotion, there is consciousness. Before circumstance, there is the capacity to experience circumstance. Tonight, let everything else fall away. Let your thoughts come and go without holding on to them. Let your emotions rise and fall without identifying with them. Let your circumstances be what they are without needing them to be different right now. Rest in the bare fact of being aware. Rest in the simple reality of consciousness itself. This is the foundation beneath all other foundations. This is what remains when everything else is taken away. You are not what you think you are. You are not your story about yourself. You are not your problems or your accomplishments. You are the awareness that knows all of this, the consciousness that experiences all of this, the being that is present to all of this. And this cannot be taken from you. As long as you are alive, you are aware. As long as you exist, consciousness is present. This is the unshakable foundation. Sleep as pure awareness. Sleep as consciousness itself. Sleep without needing to be anyone particular, do anything specific, accomplish anything special. Sleep as the awareness that witnesses sleep itself. This is what you are beneath everything else. This is what remains when everything else falls away. This is the foundation that holds even when all other foundations crumble. Rest in this tonight. Rest as this tonight. Simply be aware, Simply be conscious. Simply be present. Nothing more is needed. Nothing more is possible. This is enough. Due to length constraints, I'll continue with a representative sample of the remaining sections. Part 3. Depths of Wisdom. The natural revelation. The sky itself is a teacher. The cosmos is a constant lesson. Day speaks to day in the language of light and shadow. Night reveals knowledge through the turning of stars. This is not metaphor, but observable fact. The natural world operates according to patterns you can study, learn from, depend upon. The sun rises with predictable regularity. The seasons cycle in reliable sequence. The tides respond to lunar pull. The plants grow according to their nature. There is order woven into existence. There is intelligence, not necessarily conscious intelligence, but pattern, structure, reliability, embedded in the fabric of reality itself. You don't need sacred texts to learn about how things work. You need observation, attention, honest engagement with what is actually present. The universe teaches through direct experience. Reality reveals itself through natural processes. Sleep under the teaching sky. Sleep within the instructing universe. Sleep knowing that reality itself is the most reliable teacher, that patterns themselves are the most trustworthy guide, that what is actually true will prove itself more valuable than any comforting fiction. Part 4. Songs of Trust. Taste and experience. I will bless reality at all times. Acknowledgement of what is real shall continually be in my mouth. My soul shall make its boast in the source, not in my achievements, not in my possessions, not in my status, but in my connection to what is fundamentally real. I sought what is real, and it responded to me and delivered me from all my fears, not from all dangers, for those may remain, but from all fears, from the paralyzing anxiety, from the overwhelming dread, from the panic that prevents action. Oh, taste and see that existence itself is good. Blessed is the one who trusts in reality, not those who merely think about it, not those who only theorize, but those who actually taste, who actually experience, who actually engage directly. Tasting implies intimacy, directness, the kind of knowledge that comes through contact rather than through report. You cannot taste at a distance. You cannot know the flavor of something you've only heard described. You must put it in your mouth, let it touch your tongue, allow it to interact with your senses. Tonight, taste the goodness for yourself, not in dramatic mystical experience, though if that comes, wonderful, but in simple recognition of what is good right now in this moment. Your breath moving, this is good. Your heart beating, this is good. The darkness enabling rest, this is good. Sleep as one who has tasted and seen. Sleep as one whose essential structure is protected. Sleep as one who will be delivered out of all afflictions. The many troubles do not have the final word. Deliverance does. Recovery does. Emergence does. Shadow of wings. To take refuge means to find protection, to discover safety, to locate shelter when you're exposed and vulnerable. The image of wings suggests being covered, protected from above, shielded from what threatens. Where do you find this refuge? Not in external securities that can be taken away. Not in circumstances that constantly change, but in connection to what is most fundamental, to reality itself, to the ground of being, to what cannot be shaken because it is what holds everything else. Under the shadow of wings suggests intimacy, closeness, being held near the source of protection. Not distant relationship, but close connection. Not formal arrangement, but genuine belonging. The river of pleasures, the fountain of life. These are metaphors for the nourishment available when you remain connected to your source. Not superficial entertainment, but deep satisfaction. not temporary excitement, but sustainable joy. Most pleasures are fleeting. They spike and fade quickly, leaving you wanting more. But there are deeper satisfactions that nourish without depleting, that fulfill without creating new cravings, that genuinely sustain rather than merely temporarily distract. These come not from getting what you want, but from being aligned with what is real. Not from possession, but from presence. Not from having, but from being. Tonight, take refuge not in your possessions or achievements, or even your relationships, all of which are wonderful, but ultimately temporary. Take refuge in what cannot be taken away, your capacity for awareness, your connection to existence itself, your participation in being. Let yourself be sheltered under what is most fundamental. Let yourself be nourished by what is most real. Let yourself find safety in what is most reliable. Sleep as one who is protected. Sleep as one who is nourished. Sleep as one who has found genuine refuge in what cannot be shaken. Fret not. To fret means to worry anxiously, to stew in concern, to exhaust yourself with anxiety about what might happen. The teaching says, cease from this, not because there's nothing to be concerned about, but because fretting doesn't help. Anxiety doesn't solve problems. Worry doesn't prevent bad outcomes. It only makes you suffer in advance for things that may never happen. Fret not yourself because of evildoers means, don't let your internal state be determined by others' wrong actions. Don't let their choices steal your peace. Don't give them power over your emotional experience. This is incredibly difficult. When someone harms you or others, when injustice prospers, when wrong seems to succeed, how do you not fret? How do you maintain equanimity? The teaching offers practical guidance. Trust in what is reliable. Do good regardless of others' choices. Delight in what is genuinely valuable. Commit your way to patterns that actually work. Be still before the anxious striving. These are not religious platitudes, but practical wisdom. When you trust what is reliable, you have solid ground. When you do good, you align with what works. When you delight in the real, you find genuine satisfaction. When you commit to sustainable patterns, you build on solid foundation. When you are still, you conserve energy instead of wasting it on fretting. The promise is not that everything will work out perfectly. The promise is that those who live this way will have what they need. Not necessarily everything they want, but what they actually need. And what you actually need is usually less than what you think you need. You need food, shelter, connection, meaning. You don't need wealth, status, power, perfection. Tonight, practice ceasing from fret. Notice worry arising and let it pass without engaging it. Observe anxiety appearing and choose not to feed it with attention. You don't have to solve all problems tonight. You don't have to figure everything out. You don't have to have answers to every concern. You can simply rest, let go, cease from fretting. Sleep as one who has released anxious striving. Sleep as one who trusts what is actually reliable. Sleep as one who has stopped fretting about what you cannot control. Cry of suffering. But sometimes you're not just worried, you're actually suffering. Not anxious about what might happen, but in pain from what is happening. Not fretting about possibilities, but experiencing actual difficulty. This teaching gives voice to profound suffering, body, mind, and spirit all in distress. Bones aching, heart pounding. Peace gone, light vanished. Friends distant, enemies active. This is not gentle difficulty. This is overwhelming suffering. This is pain so complete that it affects every dimension of existence. And the teaching doesn't minimize it or spiritualize it away or suggest it's not real. It simply gives voice to it. It says, "This is what profound suffering feels like. This is what it's like when everything hurts, when relief seems impossible, when endurance requires everything you have." If this is your experience tonight, know that your suffering is real, is valid, is not being exaggerated or imagined. You are genuinely experiencing what the teaching describes: comprehensive pain affecting body, mind, and spirit. And you are not alone in this. Countless humans have suffered this way. The teaching itself is evidence that your experience, while terrible, is not unique to you, not evidence that you're specially cursed, not proof that you're doing something wrong. Suffering happens, sometimes for reasons, sometimes for no discernible reason, sometimes proportional to choices made, sometimes completely random and senseless. The teaching doesn't promise rescue. It doesn't guarantee relief. It simply bears witness to the reality of suffering, acknowledges it fully, gives it voice without trying to fix it or explain it away. Tonight, if you suffer, let yourself be heard, if not by anyone else, then by yourself. Let yourself acknowledge the full weight of what you're experiencing. Let yourself give voice to pain without trying to minimize it or rush past it. Suffering deserves to be acknowledged. Pain deserves to be witnessed. Difficulty deserves to be named. Sleep if you can. Endure if you must. Survive through this night however you're able. That is enough. You are enough. Brevity of life. Your days are handbreadths. Your years are as nothing. Your life is a breath, a mist, a shadow that appears briefly and then vanishes. This sounds depressing, but it can also be liberating. If life is brief, then what matters? Not accumulation, you can't keep anything. Not achievement, it will all be forgotten. Not reputation, everyone who knows you will die too. What matters in a brief life? Presence, connection, awareness, experience itself. You cannot extend your life significantly. You cannot escape mortality. You cannot make the temporary permanent. But you can be fully present to the life you have. You can connect deeply with the people available to you. You can be genuinely aware rather than lost in distraction. You can actually experience your life rather than rushing through it towards some future that may never arrive. The brevity of life makes it precious, not tragic, but valuable. Not depressing, but clarifying. If you only have limited time, then wasting it becomes unacceptable. If years are few, then living them fully becomes essential. Tonight, let the brevity of life inform how you relate to this moment. This night is one of limited nights you'll have. This moment of rest is one of countable moments remaining to you. This doesn't have to create anxiety, it can create appreciation. This doesn't have to depress you, it can awaken you to value, to presence, to actually being here for the limited time you have. Sleep as one who knows time is limited. Sleep as one who values moments rather than wasting them. Sleep as one who is fully here for this brief life rather than postponing presence until some imagined future of unlimited time. The opened ear. Ears opened means capacity to hear what is actually being said rather than only what you expect or want to hear. Most of us have ears that are functionally closed. We hear through filters of assumption, expectation, preference, fear. We hear what confirms our existing beliefs. We miss what contradicts our comfortable narratives. To have ears opened means to become capable of hearing what's actually true rather than only what's comfortable. To receive information that contradicts your assumptions. To take in feedback that challenges your self-image. This is uncomfortable, It's much easier to keep ears closed, to hear only what you already believe, to filter out anything that would require you to change. But opened ears allow growth. Closed ears guarantee stagnation. If you can only hear what you already know, you cannot learn anything new. The teaching connects opened ears with a new song. When you can hear what's actually real, you can respond with genuine insight rather than mere repetition. When you take in what's true, you can offer original understanding rather than stale platitudes. Tonight, consider, are your ears open or closed? Do you hear what's actually being said to you, or only what you expect? Do you receive feedback or defend against it? Do you let in information that challenges you or filter out anything uncomfortable? The person with opened ears is the person who can grow. The person with closed ears may feel more comfortable, but will never develop beyond current limitations. Sleep as one whose ears are opening. Sleep as one who is becoming capable of hearing truth even when it's uncomfortable. Sleep as one who values growth more than comfort, truth more than preference. The blessed care, those who consider the poor, the vulnerable, the weak, those who pay attention to those with less power, less resources, less capacity, these people are blessed. Not because they earn divine reward, but because considering the vulnerable keeps you connected to reality, prevents you from living in a bubble of privilege, maintains your awareness of suffering that exists even when it doesn't affect you directly. When you consider only your own concerns, only people like yourself, only those with similar advantages, you lose touch with large portions of human experience. You lose empathy, you lose perspective. You lose awareness of how much of your success is luck rather than merit. But when you pay attention to those who struggle, who suffer, who have fewer advantages, you remain aware of the role that circumstances play in outcomes. You maintain humility, you preserve compassion. You stay connected to the full range of human experience. The blessing is not magical reward. The blessing is the natural result of staying connected to reality. You understand life more completely, you respond to others more appropriately, you maintain perspective that privilege alone would destroy. Tonight, consider, do you think about those who have less than you? Do you pay attention to suffering that doesn't directly affect you? Do you remain aware of how much of your circumstance is luck rather than merit? This isn't about guilt. It's about accurate assessment. Some of what you have you earned through effort, and some of it you have through circumstances you didn't control, where you were born, who raised you, what resources were available to you, what opportunities came your way. To consider the poor is simply to remain aware of this, to not pretend that everything you have is purely personal achievement, to maintain humility about the role of circumstance in your life. Sleep as one who considers the vulnerable. Sleep as one who maintains perspective. Sleep as one who is blessed by staying connected to the full range of human experience rather than just your own narrow slice of it. As the deer pants. As a deer pants for flowing streams, so your soul longs for connection with what is most real. This is holy longing, not satisfied with surfaces, not content with substitutes, not willing to settle for second-hand reports when direct experience is possible. The deer doesn't want a picture of water. It doesn't want a description of streams. It wants actual water to actually quench its actual thirst. In the same way, your soul, meaning your deepest self, your truest identity, your most authentic being, longs for direct encounter with reality, for genuine connection with what is most fundamental, for actual experience rather than mere concept. Deep calls to deep suggests that the deepest part of you recognizes and responds to the deepest dimension of reality. Your awareness connects with the ground of being. Your consciousness touches existence itself. This is not mystical fantasy. This is describing peak experiences that many people have, moments when the boundary between self and world dissolves, when you feel connected to something vast, when ordinary consciousness opens into expanded awareness. These moments are real. They are experiences, not beliefs. They happen not because of religious practice, but because consciousness itself has this capacity to recognize its connection to existence, to experience its participation in being, to know itself as awareness aware of itself. But the teaching also acknowledges absence of these experiences. Why are you cast down, O my soul? The longing remains, but the connection feels absent. The thirst continues, but the stream seems dry. The deep calls, but no answer comes. This is also real. Longing without satisfaction. Seeking without finding. Calling without answer. This too is part of authentic experience. The refrain repeats, hope in reality. I shall again praise existence. This is not naive optimism. This is tested trust. Trust that has survived absence, longing that persists through drought, hope that continues despite current emptiness. Tonight, acknowledge your longing for something more than surfaces, something deeper than distraction, something truer than mere entertainment. Acknowledge that longing even if it's not currently satisfied. And trust that deep still calls to deep. That connection remains possible even when it's not currently present. That your capacity for encounter with reality will be fulfilled again, even if tonight you experience only absence. Sleep in the longing, sleep in the hope. Sleep trusting that the deer will find streams again, that the deep will connect with deep again, that your soul will experience what it seeks again. When darkness falls, but sometimes the darkness is not personal failure. Sometimes suffering comes despite faithfulness. Sometimes difficulty strikes even when you've done everything right. This teaching acknowledges that possibility, the righteous suffering, the faithful enduring hardship, those who live well yet face terrible circumstances anyway. For your sake, we are killed all day long. For the sake of truth, for the sake of integrity, for the sake of what is right, suffering comes. This is perhaps hardest to bear, suffering that results from your choices you can at least understand as consequence. But suffering that comes despite right choices, difficulty that arrives even though you've been faithful, hardship that strikes even when you've lived well, this seems unjust, senseless, wrong. And yet it happens. Good people suffer. Faithful people face terrible circumstances. Those who live with integrity still encounter overwhelming difficulty. Why? Sometimes there's no why. Sometimes suffering is random. Sometimes difficulty has no meaning. Sometimes hardness happens for no reason that makes sense or provides comfort. The teaching doesn't explain this away. It doesn't provide comfortable answers. It simply acknowledges the reality and cries out against it. Wake up. Why do you seem to sleep? Rouse yourself. Why do you hide your face? Why do you forget our affliction? This is protest. This is complaint. This is demanding that reality account for itself, that existence justify suffering that seems unjust. And no answer comes. The teaching ends not with resolution, but with persistent cry. Rise up and help us. Tonight, if you suffer despite faithfulness, if you face difficulty even though you've lived well, if hardship has struck though you did nothing to deserve it, your protest is valid. Your complaint is legitimate. Your cry for help is appropriate. You are not being punished. You are not being tested. You are simply experiencing the reality that suffering is not always proportional to choices, that difficulty is not always meaningful, that hardship sometimes strikes randomly without reason or lesson or purpose. This is terrible. This is unjust. This should not be, and yet it is. Sleep in the protest. Sleep in the complaint. Sleep in the unanswered cry for help. This is not giving up. This is honest recognition of what is real, even when what is real is unbearable. The royal wedding. But life also includes beauty, celebration, joy, moments of pure delight that require no justification, no meaning beyond themselves. The royal wedding is metaphor for these moments, gorgeous, splendid, overflowing with beauty and pleasure and gladness. Not suffering, not struggle, not difficulty, just pure celebration of what is lovely, what is beautiful, what brings joy. We need permission for this. We've been so trained to suspect pleasure, to distrust beauty, to question whether we deserve joy. We've been taught that serious people focus on serious matters, that mature adults don't indulge in celebration, that responsible persons don't waste time on mere beauty. But this is wrong. Beauty is not frivolous. Joy is not wasteful. Celebration is not irresponsible. These are essential dimensions of full human experience. If all you attend to is suffering, if you focus only on difficulty, if you allow only serious concerns to occupy your awareness, you lose contact with significant portions of reality. Beauty exists. Joy is real. Delight is possible. Denying these is as much an error as denying suffering. Tonight, give yourself permission for beauty, for whatever brings you genuine delight, for moments of pure joy that serve no purpose except themselves. You don't have to earn these moments. You don't have to justify pleasure. You don't have to prove you deserve beauty. These are gifts simply by being alive, simply by being conscious, simply by being capable of experiencing them. The royal wedding celebrates without apology. It revels in beauty without justification. It indulges in pleasure without guilt. Sleep as one who is allowed to experience joy. Sleep as one who can receive beauty without suspicion. Sleep as one for whom celebration is permitted, delight is acceptable, pleasure is part of full human experience. A very present help. Be still and know that I am reality. Be still and recognize what is actually real. Be still and encounter what is most fundamental. Stillness reveals what activity obscures. In constant motion, you cannot perceive the ground beneath the movement. In endless doing, you cannot recognize the being that makes doing possible. In perpetual striving, you cannot experience the presence that holds all striving. But when you become still, when activity ceases, when doing stops, when striving ends, you can recognize what was always present, but usually obscured by all your motion and effort. What is present? Reality itself. The ground of being, existence holding everything. Awareness witnessing all experience. This is not something you create through stillness. It's something you recognize when stillness allows you to perceive what's always been there. The teaching calls this a very present help in trouble, not distant, not delayed, not requiring you to go somewhere else or become someone different. Present, here, now, available. When everything is falling apart, when difficulty is overwhelming, when you have no idea what to do, stillness can reveal that beneath all the chaos, there is something that isn't falling apart, something that isn't overwhelmed, something that simply is regardless of what you do or don't do. Tonight, be still. Let activity cease. Let doing stop. Let striving end for these hours. And recognize what's present beneath all your usual motion, the simple fact of being, the reality of awareness, the ground that holds everything even when everything feels like it's falling apart. Sleep in stillness. Sleep in presence. Sleep knowing that reality itself is your very present help, not through supernatural intervention, but through the simple fact that existence continues to hold you, awareness continues to be present, being continues beneath all doing. Clap your hands. But sometimes stillness gives way to exuberance. Sometimes quiet opens into celebration. Sometimes contemplation bursts forth into physical expression of joy. Clap your hands, shout aloud. Let your body participate in the celebration of existence. This is not about religious ritual. This is about embodied joy. This is about letting delight move through you, not just as thought or feeling, but as physical expression. We are embodied beings. Our consciousness doesn't float free of our bodies. It emerges from them, expresses through them, experiences in them. To deny the body is to deny significant dimensions of being human. So when joy comes, let it move through your whole being. When delight arises, let your body express it. When celebration is appropriate, don't confine it to merely mental assent, but let it become physical reality. Dance, shout, clap, laugh. Let your body be vehicle for the joy that your consciousness experiences. This is honoring the fullness of your being, not just mind but body, not just thought but feeling and physical expression, not just concepts but embodied experience. Tonight, you may not feel like clapping or shouting, but remember times when you did. Remember moments of such complete joy that your body spontaneously expressed it. Remember experiences of delight so full that staying still was impossible. These moments are also real. These experiences are also valid data about what life includes. These embodied celebrations are also part of authentic existence. Sleep as an embodied being. Sleep in your body, as your body, through your body. Sleep honoring the physical dimension of your existence as much as the mental and emotional dimensions. You are not a mind trapped in a body. You are an embodied consciousness, a physical being capable of awareness, matter organized into the remarkable capacity for self-reflection. Let your whole being rest tonight, mind, heart, and body. Let every dimension of your existence receive the restoration that sleep provides. The beautiful city. There is a vision of life lived well, a community where people flourish together, where structures support rather than exploit, where systems serve the common good, where beauty and functionality combine. This is the beautiful city, not perfection, but genuine goodness, not utopia, but actual health, not fantasy, but achievable flourishing. You can be part of creating this through how you treat others, through what you contribute, through the ripples your choices send through social systems. The beautiful city is not built by one person, but by countless individuals, each doing their small part, speaking truth, acting with integrity, treating others well, contributing what they can. You may never see the full beautiful city. You may only create one small corner of it. But that corner matters. Your contribution counts. Your choices shape the whole, even when you cannot see the full pattern. Tonight, consider, what is your part in creating beauty? How do your choices contribute to flourishing or harm? What ripples do your actions send through the social systems you're part of? You are not responsible for creating the whole beautiful city, but you are responsible for your corner of it. You are accountable for your part of the pattern. Sleep as one who builds beautiful corners. Sleep as one whose choices contribute to flourishing. Sleep as one who participates in creating the city that supports life rather than destroying it. Mortality as equalizer. Rich and poor, powerful and weak, famous and unknown, all die. Death is the great equalizer. No amount of wealth prevents it. No level of power escapes it. No degree of fame avoids it. This could be depressing, but it can also be liberating. If everyone dies, then permanent success is impossible. If nothing lasts, then failure is never final. If all achievements eventually fade, then what actually matters? Relationships while they last, experiences while they happen, presence to moments as they occur, consciousness itself while it persists. You cannot take anything with you when you die. You cannot preserve achievements beyond their time. You cannot make the temporary permanent. So what matters in the limited time you have? Not accumulation. Not achievement for its own sake. Not building monuments that will eventually crumble. What matters is how you treat people while you're all alive together. What matters is whether you experience your life or sleepwalk through it. What matters is consciousness itself, awareness of being aware, presence to the gift of existence while it lasts. Tonight, let mortality clarify rather than depress you. Let the knowledge that time is limited make you value it more. Let the awareness that nothing lasts help you be present to what is rather than constantly grasping for what isn't. Sleep as one whose time is limited. Sleep as one who cannot keep anything. Sleep as one who values presence over possession, experience over achievement, consciousness over accumulation. Sacrifice of thanksgiving. The sacrifice that matters is not external ritual, but internal orientation. Not performance to appease, but genuine gratitude that transforms how you see and respond to life. Thanksgiving. As sacrifice means giving up the stance of entitlement, releasing the posture of taking everything for granted, offering genuine appreciation for what is rather than only complaint about what isn't. This is genuine sacrifice because it requires dying to the part of you that believes you deserve everything, that thinks you're owed perfect circumstances, that insists life should conform to your preferences. When you offer thanksgiving, when you genuinely appreciate what you have rather than only mourning what you lack, you participate in something larger than personal grievance. You connect to reality more completely than complaint alone allows. This doesn't mean denying difficulty. It doesn't mean pretending everything is fine. It means acknowledging both, what's hard and what's good, what you lack and what you have, what's broken and what still works. The sacrifice of thanksgiving is offering accurate assessment that includes appreciation alongside complaint, gratitude alongside grief, recognition of gifts alongside acknowledgement of losses. Tonight, what can you genuinely appreciate? Not what you should feel grateful for, but what you actually do appreciate when you're honest with yourself. Your breath, your consciousness. The fact that you've made it through another day. The simple reality that you're still here, still aware, still capable of experience. Offer this appreciation not as performance, but as honest recognition. Sacrifice the stance of pure complaint in favor of more complete truth that includes both difficulty and support, both loss and gift. Sleep as one who has offered thanksgiving. Sleep as one who sees accurately enough to appreciate alongside criticizing. Sleep as one whose sacrifice is internal transformation rather than external ritual. The clean heart. There are moments when you recognize you have caused harm, when you see clearly that your choices have hurt yourself or others, when you cannot deny or minimize or explain away what you have done. In these moments, what is needed is not religious ritual, but genuine transformation, not external performance, but internal change. Not sacrifice offered to appease, but actual shift in how you think and act. Create in me a clean heart. This is asking for something that only fundamental change can accomplish. Not covering over what is dirty, but actually making it clean. not hiding what is broken, but actually making it whole. You cannot do this alone through willpower. You have already tried that, and it has not worked. Deep patterns, old habits, ingrained tendencies, these do not change through simple decision. What changes them is genuine recognition of harm, honest acknowledgement of pattern, sustained attention to what is actually happening. This is not one moment of remorse, but ongoing practice of self-awareness, not single confession, but continuous honesty. The transformation you need is not instant or complete. It is gradual, partial, always in process. You will not achieve perfect heart or permanent purity, but you can move in the direction of greater alignment, more integrity, increasing honesty. A broken spirit, a contrite heart, these are not rejected. This means that genuine recognition of failure, honest acknowledgement of harm caused, authentic remorse for wrong done, these are the foundation for transformation rather than obstacles to it. You don't have to pretend you're fine to grow. You don't have to hide your failure to change. You have to see it clearly, acknowledge it honestly, and commit to different patterns going forward. Tonight, if you carry guilt about harm you have caused, know that transformation is possible, not through magic or miracle, but through sustained practice of self-awareness and intentional change. You cannot undo the past. You can only stop repeating its patterns. You cannot erase what you have done. You can only become someone who no longer does those things. This is enough. This is what is available. This is the path of actual transformation rather than mere performance of regret. Sleep as one who acknowledges harm without being destroyed by it. Sleep as one who seeks transformation without demanding perfection. Sleep as one who is in process, always in process, genuinely in process of becoming more aligned, more whole, more truly themselves. The fool and the boastful. There are those who live as if consequences don't exist, as if integrity doesn't matter, as if deception has no cost. They boast in their cleverness, trust in their manipulation, believe their harm will go unpunished. This is foolishness, not low intelligence, but fundamental misunderstanding of how reality works. Not ignorance, but willful blindness to patterns that govern human flourishing. The boastful fool may succeed for a time. Deception may work temporarily. Manipulation may produce short-term gains, but over the long arc, these patterns are unsustainable. Why? Because humans are built for connection, and connection requires trust, and trust cannot survive constant deception. Because social systems eventually reject those who chronically violate them. Because isolation is inevitable when you cannot be trusted and no one knows your real self. The consequence is not divine punishment, but natural result. The cost is not supernatural judgment, but predictable outcome of living contrary to how things actually work. But there are also those who trust in what is reliable, who live with integrity even when it's costly, who maintain honesty even when lies would be more convenient. These are the wise, not because they're smarter, but because they align with patterns that actually sustain flourishing. The wise may not prosper immediately. Integrity may cost them in the short term. Honesty may put them at disadvantage compared to deceivers. But over the long arc, they build lives that are sustainable, relationships that are genuine, internal experiences that are coherent. Tonight, consider, are you living with wisdom or foolishness? Not according to religious standards, but according to observable patterns. Does your life align with what actually works, or does it violate patterns that sustain flourishing? This isn't about perfection, this is about general direction. Overall pattern, fundamental orientation. Sleep as one who seeks wisdom rather than cleverness. Sleep as one who values integrity over manipulation. Sleep as one who builds on patterns that actually work rather than shortcuts that eventually collapse. Being known completely. You are fully known, not by a supernatural being, but in the sense that reality itself holds the complete truth of who you are. Every thought you've ever had, every action you've taken, every motive behind every choice. This could be terrifying. There is much about yourself you'd prefer to hide, to deny, to pretend isn't true. But there is also relief in being fully known. You don't have to maintain pretense. You don't have to perform perfection. You don't have to hide your worst self because it's already fully exposed to reality. Nothing you do is hidden from existence itself. Nothing you think escapes the fact of having been thought. Nothing you've done can be erased from the fabric of what has occurred. This is both sobering and liberating. Sobering because you cannot hide from truth. Liberating because you can stop trying to. When you're fully known, performance becomes pointless. When reality holds complete truth about you, pretense becomes futile. When everything is already exposed, hiding becomes unnecessary. This invites radical honesty, not just with others, but with yourself. If you're already fully known to reality, why waste energy pretending to yourself? Why maintain illusions that fool no one, not even you? Tonight, let yourself be fully known. Let yourself acknowledge to yourself what is already completely true about you, your best and your worst, your noble motives and your selfish ones, your genuine growth and your stubborn patterns. This knowing doesn't condemn you, it simply is. You are what you are, have done what you've done, are becoming what you're becoming. Reality holds all of this without judgment, without approval, simply as what is. Sleep as one who is fully known. Sleep as one who can stop hiding, stop performing, stop pretending. Sleep in the relief of being completely seen and continuing to exist anyway. Injustice acknowledged. Why do the corrupt prosper? Why do the deceitful succeed? Why do those who harm others seem to face no consequences, while those who live with integrity struggle? This is not rhetorical complaint. This is genuine observation of patterns that seem to contradict everything teachings about justice would suggest. The teaching doesn't offer easy answers. It doesn't spiritualize the problem away. It doesn't pretend that justice always prevails or that good always triumphs. It acknowledges what is observably true. Sometimes the wicked prosper. Sometimes the corrupt succeed. Sometimes harm goes unpunished. This is infuriating. This feels fundamentally wrong. This contradicts our deep sense that reality should be fair, that actions should have proportional consequences, that living well should produce better outcomes than living badly. But observation shows us that timing is unpredictable. Some consequences are immediate. Some take years. Some take generations. Some may never come in ways we can observe. The person who builds their life on deception may succeed brilliantly for decades. They may die wealthy, celebrated, apparently victorious. Where is the justice in that? The teaching offers this. You cannot see the whole story. You see a slice of time, a fragment of the pattern. You observe outcomes at one moment, but cannot see the full arc of consequences. The corrupt person who prospers externally, what is their internal experience? The deceiver who succeeds publicly, do they have genuine relationships or only strategic alliances? The person who harms others without apparent consequence, can they trust anyone, including themselves? The consequences may be invisible from outside, but very real on the inside. The cost may not be observable in their circumstances, but profound in their experience. This doesn't make injustice acceptable. This doesn't justify allowing harm to continue without resistance. This simply acknowledges that you cannot always see the full pattern of consequences. cannot always observe the complete cost of choices. And even if consequences never come, even if some people truly do prosper through corruption and die without ever facing justice, this doesn't change what you control: your own choices, your own character, your own integrity. You cannot control whether others face consequences. You can only control whether you maintain integrity despite observing others succeed through corruption. Tonight, if you're troubled by injustice you observe, if you're frustrated by corruption that seems to prosper, if you're angry at harm that goes unpunished, your frustration is valid. Your anger is appropriate. Your sense of injustice is accurate. And you can rest anyway. Not because the injustice doesn't matter, but because your capacity to respond to it tomorrow depends on your rest tonight. Not because you're giving up, but because exhaustion serves no one. Sleep knowing that you cannot see the whole pattern. Sleep acknowledging that justice is not always observable in the time frame you witness. Sleep maintaining your own integrity regardless of what you observe in others. Asaph's turmoil. This teaching reveals internal struggle, the crisis that comes when observation of reality contradicts everything you've been taught to believe. You've been told that living well leads to flourishing. You've been taught that integrity produces good outcomes. You've been assured that reality rewards right living. But then you observe the opposite. You see corrupt people prospering. You watch deceitful people succeeding. You notice that your own integrity seems to cost you while others' manipulation seems to benefit them. This creates turmoil, not just disappointment but crisis of understanding. If what you've been taught isn't true, what can you trust? If the patterns you believed in don't hold, what can you rely on? The teaching describes this turmoil honestly. My feet had almost stumbled, my steps had nearly slipped. This is someone whose entire framework is collapsing, whose understanding of how things work is being shattered by observation of how things actually are. They almost speak out, almost declare that living well is pointless, that integrity is for fools, that the only rational response to observing corruption prosper is to abandon integrity and join the corrupt. But they don't. Why? Not because they find easy answers, not because the turmoil resolves neatly, but because speaking out would betray others who are also trying to live with integrity despite not seeing it rewarded. Then comes a shift, entering the sanctuary, gaining perspective, seeing the end of the corrupt from a longer view. This doesn't mean divine intervention will punish them. It means that the pattern they're on is unsustainable, that lives built on deception eventually collapse, that prosperity without foundation eventually crumbles. But even more importantly, the teaching concludes with recognition. Whom have I in reality but you? Meaning, what matters most is not external outcomes, but connection to what is most real, relationship with what is most fundamental, alignment with what is actually true. Even if corrupt people prosper forever, even if justice never comes in observable ways, connection to reality itself, alignment with truth, living with integrity matters in itself, produces its own rewards that aren't dependent on others facing consequences. Tonight, if you're experiencing turmoil, if observation contradicts what you've been taught, if reality seems to violate principles you trusted, if you're questioning everything you believed about how things work, this turmoil is legitimate. This crisis is real. This struggle is authentic. You don't have to resolve it tonight. You don't have to find answers immediately. You can sit with the questions, hold the turmoil, acknowledge the crisis without forcing premature resolution. Sometimes understanding comes gradually. Sometimes perspective shifts slowly. Sometimes turmoil must be fully experienced before new understanding can emerge. Sleep in the turmoil. Sleep with the questions. Sleep knowing that crisis of understanding, while painful, is often preparation for deeper truth, more accurate perception, more sustainable framework. Would reality abandon forever? Has reality rejected me permanently? Has truth turned away forever? Has the fundamental order abandoned me completely? These are questions that arise in prolonged difficulty, not momentary crisis but extended suffering, not temporary setback but ongoing struggle, not brief darkness but persistent absence of light. Will the love that sustains existence itself never return? Has compassion been withdrawn permanently? Have the promises about patterns leading to flourishing proven false forever? Has the ground of being forgotten to be gracious? Has reality itself shut up its compassion? Has existence fundamentally changed its nature? These questions reflect genuine despair, the experience of prolonged difficulty that begins to feel permanent, suffering that starts to seem like the new normal, darkness that appears to have replaced light forever. The teaching doesn't immediately resolve these questions, it sits with them. It gives voice to them. It acknowledges the legitimacy of asking whether suffering has become permanent, whether relief will ever come, whether things will ever improve. Then comes a subtle shift. I will remember. This is not declaration that suffering has ended, but choice to recall previous experiences, to bring to mind past patterns, to remember times when change did come even when it seemed impossible. The remembering doesn't change present circumstances. The suffering continues. But memory adds complexity to the narrative, reminds that current experience isn't the only experience, that present suffering isn't the whole story, that change has happened before, even when it seemed impossible. The teaching recalls mighty acts, wonders performed, deeds of old, not supernatural miracles, but actual experiences of transformation, genuine moments when stuck situations shifted, real times when impossible things became possible. These memories don't guarantee future relief. They simply establish that change is possible, that transformation has occurred before, that current suffering is not the final word. Tonight, if you wonder whether reality has abandoned you forever, if you question whether things will ever improve, if you fear that current suffering has become permanent, these questions are legitimate. This fear is real. This wondering is authentic. And you can remember even while questioning. You can recall past changes even while fearing none will come. You can hold memory of previous transformation even while experiencing present stuckness. The remembering doesn't end suffering, but it prevents suffering from being the only story, the complete narrative, the final truth. Sleep with your questions unanswered. Sleep with your fears unresolved. Sleep holding both, the legitimate fear that suffering might be permanent and the accurate memory that change has happened before, that transformation has occurred previously, that what seemed impossible became actual. You don't have to force faith. You don't have to manufacture hope. You can simply remember truthfully while questioning honestly, recall accurately while fearing genuinely. That is enough for tonight. That will sustain you through these hours. That will carry you to tomorrow when you can continue holding both, the questions and the memories, the fear and the facts, the current suffering and the previous changes. Reality recognized. When ultimate reality manifests, when truth becomes undeniable, when what is most fundamental reveals itself, the response is awe. Not intellectual agreement, but visceral recognition. Not casual acknowledgement, but profound encounter. This happens in moments of genuine insight, when you suddenly see what has always been true, but you had not noticed. It happens in experiences of natural beauty so overwhelming that you are stopped in your tracks. It happens in encounters with reality so direct that all your conceptual frameworks momentarily dissolve. These moments are rare. Most of life is lived in the realm of concept, of belief, of second-hand knowledge. We navigate by maps rather than direct encounter with territory. We live in our stories about reality rather than in direct contact with it. But sometimes the map drops away. Sometimes the stories dissolve. Sometimes you encounter what is real directly, immediately, undeniably. In these moments, you know. Not because someone told you, not because you figured it out, but because you have direct experience that cannot be doubted, even if it cannot be fully articulated. Tonight, remember moments when you have known something directly, times when truth was undeniable, experiences when reality revealed itself in ways that required no explanation or justification. These moments are your foundation. These experiences are your authority. Trust what you have actually experienced more than what you have been told. Trust what you genuinely know more than what you think you should believe. Trust direct encounter more than conceptual framework. Sleep as one who has touched reality directly. Sleep as one whose foundation is personal encounter rather than inherited doctrine. The question posed to history, looking back across human experience, across cultures and eras, certain patterns repeat. Certain ways of living consistently produce certain outcomes. Certain principles seem to hold across vast differences in circumstance and culture. What can we learn from this long perspective? What does history teach when we pay attention to patterns rather than specific events? We learn that integrity matters. Across all cultures and times, societies built on honesty function better than societies built on deception. This is not religious teaching, but historical observation. We learn that compassion produces better outcomes than cruelty, not because of divine command, but because humans are social creatures whose well-being depends on quality of relationships, which depends on how we treat each other. We learn that living aligned with reality works better than living in denial of it, not because reality rewards alignment, but because misalignment with what is actually true creates suffering through natural consequence. These are not religious doctrines. These are patterns observable across human history. Different cultures have different stories, different beliefs, different practices, but underneath the diversity of form, certain principles appear universal. You can trust these time-tested patterns. You can align with what has proven sustainable across vast stretches of human experience. You can learn from the accumulated wisdom of countless generations who have grappled with the same fundamental questions you face. You are not the first to wonder how to live well. You are not the first to face difficulty. You are not the first to seek meaning in suffering. Countless humans before you have wrestled with these questions, and patterns have emerged from their collective experience. These patterns are your inheritance. This wisdom is your birthright. These insights are available to you regardless of religious affiliation or cultural background. Tonight, let yourself be supported by the accumulated wisdom of human history. Let yourself trust patterns that have proven reliable across thousands of years and countless cultures. Let yourself learn from humanity's long experience of what works and what doesn't. Sleep as one who learns from history. Sleep as one who trusts time-tested patterns. Sleep as one who benefits from accumulated human wisdom. You stand on firm ground, not because of religious belief, but because of observable patterns that have proven reliable across vast stretches of human experience. The teaching offered. There is wisdom available if you are willing to listen. There is understanding accessible if you are willing to learn. There is insight possible if you are willing to receive. But you must be willing. The teaching cannot force itself upon you. The wisdom cannot compel your acceptance. The insight cannot overwhelm your resistance. This is about the posture you take toward experience. Do you approach life as a student or as someone who already knows everything? Do you encounter difficulty as an opportunity to learn or as an unfair imposition? Do you receive feedback as useful information or as personal attack? The quality of your life depends largely on your willingness to be taught by reality. If you insist you already know everything, you cannot learn anything new. If you interpret all correction as criticism, you cannot benefit from feedback. If you resist all change, you cannot grow. But if you can maintain what is called beginner's mind, openness to new information, willingness to be wrong, curiosity about what you don't understand, then every experience becomes a teacher, every difficulty becomes a lesson, every mistake becomes an opportunity. This is not about being passive or naive. This is about being open and responsive. Not gullible, but genuinely willing to learn from experience rather than constantly defending your current understanding against new information. The teaching is being offered continuously through the consequences of your choices, through the feedback of your relationships, through the results of your actions. Reality is constantly instructing you in what works and what doesn't, what produces flourishing and what produces suffering. But are you listening? Are you paying attention? Are you willing to adjust based on what you're learning? Tonight, consider your own posture toward learning. Are you open to being taught? Are you willing to be corrected? Can you receive wisdom from unexpected sources? Can you learn from experiences you didn't choose? The universe offers instruction through natural consequences, through observable patterns, through the results of your choices. But you must be willing to pay attention, to notice, to learn. Sleep as one who remains teachable. Sleep as one who approaches experience with curiosity rather than defensiveness. Sleep as one who is willing to learn from reality itself, from the constant feedback that life provides to those who pay attention. The restoration needed. There are times when everything needs to be rebuilt from the ground up, when incremental change is insufficient, when what is required is not reform but transformation, not improvement but revolution, not adjustment but complete renewal. Perhaps this is where you are. Perhaps your life needs fundamental restructuring. Perhaps your habits require radical change. Perhaps your understanding demands thorough revision. This is daunting. This is overwhelming. This feels impossible. And yet, it has been done before. People have completely transformed their lives. Societies have fundamentally restructured themselves. Understanding has been radically revised in light of new evidence. It is possible. Not easy. Not quick. Not comfortable. But possible. The question is whether you are willing. Whether you can acknowledge that surface changes are insufficient. Whether you can admit that deep transformation is required. This admission is itself the beginning. Recognizing that you cannot continue as you have been is the first step toward actually changing. Acknowledging that your current patterns are unsustainable is the foundation for developing new ones. What needs restoration in your life? What structures have crumbled that need rebuilding? What patterns have failed that need replacing? What understanding has proven false that needs revising? You don't have to know how restoration will happen. You don't have to see the complete plan. You only have to acknowledge that it is needed and be willing for it to occur. The restoration may come gradually through many small changes, or it may come suddenly through crisis that forces transformation. You cannot control the timing or the method. You can only acknowledge the need and remain open to the process. Tonight, if you sense that deep change is needed, know that this sensing is itself significant. Many people never reach this recognition. Many people defend their patterns to the end, insisting that nothing fundamental need change. You have moved beyond this. You have recognized that transformation is required. This is progress, even though it doesn't feel like it. This is movement, even though it feels like crisis. Sleep in the recognition that deep change is needed. Sleep with the willingness for it to happen. Sleep trusting that transformation is possible, has happened before, can happen again, in you, through you, as you. The cry for attention. Listen. Please listen. Hear what I am actually saying, not what you expect me to say. Pay attention to what is really happening, not what you assume is happening. See what is actually true, not what is convenient to believe. This is the cry of anyone who feels unheard, unseen, misunderstood. This is the voice of everyone who knows they are being reduced to a category, dismissed as a type, interpreted through a lens that distorts rather than reveals. You have experienced this. You have tried to communicate something important and watched the other person's eyes glaze over, seen them prepare their response before you finish speaking, noticed them fitting you into their preconceptions rather than actually listening to your unique experience. And you have done this to others. You have stopped listening because you thought you already knew what they would say. You have prepared your response before they finish speaking. You have interpreted them through your assumptions rather than actually hearing them. This mutual failure to truly listen is one of the great sources of human suffering. We are surrounded by people, yet profoundly alone because no one actually hears anyone else. Everyone is speaking, but no one is listening. Everyone has a story, but no one has an audience. True listening is rare. It requires setting aside your agenda, suspending your judgments, releasing your need to respond, and simply receiving what is being offered. It requires being present to another person's experience without immediately relating it to your own, without rushing to fix or advise, without filtering it through your preconceptions. This kind of listening is a gift. When someone truly hears you, when they give you their complete attention without planning their response, without judging your words, without fitting you into their categories, you feel it. You know it. It's unmistakable. And when you offer this kind of listening to others, you give them something precious. You create space for them to be fully themselves rather than fitting into your expectations. You allow their truth to emerge rather than imposing your interpretations. Tonight, consider: when is the last time you truly listened? When did you last give someone your complete attention without planning your response, without judging their words, without fitting them into your categories? And when is the last time someone truly heard you? When did you last experience being genuinely received, actually understood, deeply seen for who you really are, rather than who they assume you to be? This kind of listening is transformative both to give and to receive. It changes relationships. It creates connection. It allows truth to emerge. Sleep tonight, knowing that your cry for attention is valid, your desire to be heard is legitimate, your need to be understood is real. And know that you can give to others what you wish to receive yourself: deep listening, genuine attention, real presence. The call to celebration. There are moments that deserve acknowledgement, times that warrant marking, experiences that should be honored rather than rushed past in the blur of constant activity. When something good happens, pause and recognize it. When difficulty resolves, stop and acknowledge relief. When beauty appears, take time to appreciate it. When connection occurs, allow yourself to feel it. We are so trained to move on to the next thing that we rarely fully receive the gifts of the present moment. Something wonderful happens and we immediately worry about when it will end. Something beautiful appears and we rush to capture it rather than simply experiencing it. Something meaningful occurs and we analyze it rather than savoring it. What would it mean to celebrate without reservation? To enjoy without immediately thinking about what's next? to receive without instantly planning how to keep what cannot be kept. Celebration is not frivolous, it's essential. It's how we mark significance, how we acknowledge goodness, how we honor what matters. Without celebration, life becomes a gray blur of continuous activity, with no pause to recognize what's actually happening. The call to celebration is an invitation to be fully present to joy when it appears, not to grasp it or try to make it permanent. Simply to be with it completely while it's here. Clap your hands, shout aloud. Let your body express delight. Let joy move through you physically, not just as thought or feeling, but as embodied experience. You are not just a mind thinking about life. You are an embodied being experiencing life. Your body deserves to participate in celebration just as it participates in suffering. Tonight, remember moments of genuine joy in your life. Times when you experienced something so good that you forgot to worry, forgot to plan, forgot everything except the simple fact of being fully present to goodness. These moments are gifts. They are what make life worth living. They are evidence that existence includes not just difficulty, but delight, not just suffering, but satisfaction, not just pain, but pleasure. You don't have to earn these moments. You don't have to achieve them. You simply have to be open to receiving them when they come and willing to fully experience them rather than rushing past them. Sleep tonight with gratitude for whatever moments of genuine goodness you have experienced. Sleep with openness to future moments of unexpected joy. Sleep knowing that life includes celebration as well as struggle, that existence offers gifts as well as challenges, that reality provides beauty as well as hardship. Let yourself receive the good when it comes. Let yourself celebrate without reservation. Let yourself be fully present to whatever genuine joy appears in your life. The witness of nations. Looking across the vast diversity of human cultures, across the full range of human societies, certain truths appear universal. Certain patterns emerge regardless of specific beliefs, particular practices, individual customs. Every culture has some concept of right and wrong, some distinction between helpful and harmful actions, some recognition that certain behaviors sustain community while others destroy it. Every society has some mechanism for transmitting wisdom from one generation to the next, some way of teaching the young what the old have learned, some system for preserving hard-won insights. Every tradition has some acknowledgement that life includes both suffering and joy, both difficulty and delight, both challenge and celebration, and that wisdom involves learning to navigate all of these. These commonalities across cultures are evidence of something fundamental about human nature, something true about the basic structure of human experience, something real about the patterns that govern human flourishing. The specific forms vary wildly. The stories differ dramatically. The practices are incredibly diverse, but underneath all this variation, certain principles appear again and again. This suggests that these principles are not culturally constructed, but naturally discovered, not invented by particular traditions, but recognized through universal human experience. Not created by specific beliefs, but observed through collective encounter with reality. You can trust these cross-cultural patterns. You can align with principles that appear across the full range of human societies. You can learn from wisdom that transcends particular traditions while honoring the unique contributions of each. Tonight, recognize that you are part of a vast human family that, despite all its diversity, shares fundamental experiences and discovers similar truths. The questions you face have been faced by countless humans across all cultures. The challenges you encounter have been encountered by people in every society. You are not alone in your seeking. You are not unique in your struggling. You are part of the great human endeavor to understand life, to navigate difficulty, to find meaning in the midst of mystery. Sleep as part of this vast human family. Sleep knowing that wisdom is available from countless traditions. Sleep trusting that patterns discovered across cultures are patterns you too can align with, learn from, benefit from. How long until justice? How long will the corrupt prosper? How long will the deceitful succeed? How long will those who cause harm escape consequences? How long must we wait for justice? This is not patient inquiry. This is urgent demand. This is the cry of those who have waited long enough, endured too much, seen too many violations go unaddressed. The question assumes that justice should come, that wrongs should be righted, that those who cause harm should face consequences. And this assumption is reasonable. It's based on the fundamental human sense that actions should matter, that choices should have results, that living harmfully should produce different outcomes than living well. But observation shows that timing is unpredictable. Some consequences are immediate. Some take years. Some take generations. Some may never come in ways we can observe. This doesn't mean justice doesn't exist. It means justice operates on timelines we don't control, through mechanisms we can't always see, in ways that may not satisfy our demand for immediate and obvious correction. The person who causes harm may prosper for decades. The corrupt system may function successfully for generations. The unjust practice may continue for centuries. Does this mean there are no consequences? Or does it mean that consequences unfold in ways and on timelines that exceed our observation? We cannot know for certain. We can only observe what we can observe, which is limited by our position in time, our scope of awareness, our capacity to see patterns. What we can control is our response to injustice. We can work against it where possible. We can resist it where we encounter it. We can refuse to participate in it when we have choice. We can maintain our own integrity even when we observe others succeed through corruption. Tonight, if you carry frustration about injustice that continues, if you wonder how long you must wait for wrongs to be righted, if you're tired of watching harm go unaddressed, your frustration is valid. Your weariness is real. Your demand for justice is legitimate. And you can rest anyway, not because the injustice doesn't matter, but because exhaustion doesn't serve justice. Not because you're giving up, but because your capacity to work for justice tomorrow depends on your rest tonight. Sleep knowing that you cannot see the whole pattern. Sleep acknowledging that justice may operate beyond your observation. Sleep maintaining hope that wrongs can be addressed even while recognizing that timing is not in your control. Deep longing returns. The longing for connection with what is most real, the thirst for encounter with what is most fundamental, the desire for direct experience of what is most true, this longing returns. It may be satisfied for a time. You may have experiences of deep connection, moments of genuine encounter, periods of direct knowing. But the longing returns. The thirst comes back. The desire renews. This is not failure. This is the nature of being human. We are not built for permanent satisfaction, but for cycles of longing and fulfillment, thirst and satisfaction, desire and encounter. Like needing food again after eating, like needing water again after drinking, like needing rest again after sleeping. The longing for connection with what is real returns because we are temporal beings living in time, not eternal beings dwelling in timelessness. This can feel disappointing. You had a profound experience of connection. You encountered what is real directly. You knew truth immediately. And then the experience faded. The connection diminished. The knowing became memory rather than present reality. But the fading doesn't invalidate the experience. The return of longing doesn't prove the encounter was false. The need to seek again doesn't mean previous finding was insufficient. This is simply how human consciousness works. We live in time. Experiences arise and pass. States come and go. Even the most profound encounters become memories that we long to have again. The invitation is to trust the rhythm, to honor both the longing and the fulfillment, to value both the seeking and the finding, to embrace both the absence and the presence as essential parts of the complete pattern. Tonight, if you feel the longing return, if you've had experiences of deep connection but now feel that connection absent, if you've known truth directly but now relate to it only through memory, this is not regression. This is the natural cycle of human experience. The longing itself is valuable. It keeps you oriented toward what matters most. It prevents you from settling for surfaces. It maintains your awareness that there is more to reality than you currently experience. Sleep with the longing. Sleep in the thirst. Sleep trusting that fulfillment will come again. That encounter is still possible, that what you've experienced before you can experience again, not because you earn it, but because this is the natural rhythm of consciousness seeking connection with reality. Restore us again. Restore us. Bring us back. Return us to ourselves. Renew us. Make us whole again. This is the cry of those who have lost their way, who have become disconnected from what matters, who have wandered far from their own truth. Restoration doesn't mean returning to how things were. It means returning to alignment with what is real, reconnection with what is fundamental, renewal of relationship with what is true. You cannot go backward in time. You cannot undo what has been done. You cannot return to previous innocence or earlier simplicity, but you can return to alignment. You can reconnect with truth. You can renew relationship with reality. How? Not through effort alone, but through combination of intention and surrender. You must choose to turn back toward what is real, but you cannot force the restoration. You can only make yourself available to it. The restoration often comes through crisis, through hitting bottom, through recognizing that current patterns are unsustainable, through admitting that you cannot continue as you have been. This crisis creates opening for transformation. The breakdown becomes breakthrough. The collapse becomes foundation for rebuilding. But timing is not in your control. You cannot schedule restoration. You cannot plan renewal. You can only acknowledge the need, remain open to the process, and trust that transformation happens when conditions are right, which may not be when you prefer. Tonight, if you need restoration, if you have lost your way, if you have become disconnected, if you have wandered far from your own truth, acknowledge this need. Don't minimize it. Don't pretend you're fine when you're not. The acknowledgement itself is movement toward restoration. The recognition that you need renewal is the beginning of renewal. The admission that you're lost is the first step toward being found. You don't have to accomplish restoration tonight. You don't have to complete transformation immediately. You simply have to acknowledge the need and remain open to the process. Sleep in the need for restoration. Sleep with the desire for renewal. Sleep trusting that return to alignment is possible, reconnection with truth is available, relationship with reality can be restored. Among all the powers that shape human life, political forces, economic systems, social pressures, cultural expectations, what is ultimately most powerful? Not external force, but internal alignment. Not imposed control, but chosen integrity. Not commanded compliance, but genuine orientation toward truth. The powers of the world operate through coercion, through threat and promise, through reward and punishment. They can control behavior, but not belief. Actions, but not authenticity. Compliance, but not commitment. But there is a power that operates differently, the power of truth itself, the force of reality, the strength that comes from alignment with what is actually real rather than resistance to it. This power doesn't impose, it reveals. It doesn't coerce, it invites. It doesn't threaten, it simply is. Undeniable for those who encounter it directly, available to those who seek it genuinely. Among all the powers competing for your allegiance, seeking your obedience, demanding your conformity, which will you serve? Which will you align with? Which will you orient your life toward? The powers of the world are temporary. They rise and fall. They gain influence and lose it. They seem permanent until they collapse. But reality itself doesn't rise or fall. Truth doesn't gain or lose power. What is fundamental doesn't depend on human acknowledgement or denial. You can align with what is temporary and powerful now, but fleeting in the long view. Or you can align with what is eternal, not in the sense of supernatural timelessness, but in the sense of fundamental patterns that don't change regardless of shifting human systems. Tonight, consider, what powers do you serve? What forces shape your choices? What influences determine your direction? Are you primarily responsive to external pressures or internal alignment? Do you orient toward what is powerful now or what is fundamentally real? Do you serve temporary systems or eternal patterns? This is not about religious belief. This is about recognizing that some allegiances are more sustainable than others, that some orientations are more reliable than others, that some alignments produce more genuine flourishing than others. Sleep as one who has chosen alignment with what is real. Sleep as one who serves truth rather than temporary power. Sleep as one whose ultimate allegiance is to reality itself rather than to systems that will eventually pass. Foundation of the city. Every stable society is built on certain foundations: shared values, common agreements, mutual understanding of what sustains community versus what destroys it. These foundations are not arbitrary. They emerge from observation of what actually works, from experience of what produces flourishing versus what produces suffering, from accumulated wisdom about patterns that sustain human life together. The foundations include honesty in communication, justice in relationships, compassion in treatment of vulnerable, responsibility for consequences of actions, humility about limits of knowledge, willingness to learn from experience. These are not religious requirements. These are practical necessities for any group of humans trying to live together sustainably. When foundations are solid, when society is built on truth, justice, compassion, the structure can withstand storms. When foundations are weak, when society is built on lies, exploitation, cruelty, even impressive structures eventually collapse. You participate in building or eroding these foundations through your daily choices. Every time you speak truth, you strengthen the foundation. Every time you act justly, you build solid ground. Every time you show compassion, you create stability. And every time you lie, you weaken the foundation. Every time you exploit, you erode solid ground. Every time you show cruelty, you undermine stability. Your individual actions seem small, but foundations are built one stone at a time. Structures are undermined one crack at a time. The city that endures or collapses is shaped by the accumulated choices of countless individuals, each doing their small part. Tonight, recognize that you are always either building or eroding the foundations of the communities you're part of. Your choices matter. Your actions have consequences beyond yourself. Your participation shapes the whole. This is not burden, but opportunity. You have power to contribute to stability, to build toward flourishing, to participate in creating structures that serve life rather than destroying it. Sleep as one who builds on solid foundation. Sleep as one whose choices strengthen rather than weaken. Sleep as one who participates in creating cities that endure because they're built on truth, justice, and compassion. Song of steadfast love. The steadfast love that sustains existence itself, the unwavering commitment to life that characterizes reality, the persistent tendency toward flourishing that runs through the universe, this deserves acknowledgement. This is not about believing in a personal deity who loves you individually. This is about recognizing that existence itself has qualities that, if they were exhibited by a person, we would call loving. The universe is structured to allow for life. The fundamental forces are balanced precisely to permit complexity. The laws of physics enable the emergence of consciousness. This is either remarkable coincidence or something worth calling steadfast love, reality's persistent orientation toward the possibility of flourishing. Your body heals without your conscious direction. This is steadfast love operating through biological systems. Your breath continues without your effort. This is unwavering commitment to your life built into your physiology. Your consciousness persists through sleep and waking. This is persistent tendency toward your being that characterizes your existence. None of this requires supernatural explanation, but all of it is remarkable enough to deserve recognition, appreciation, something like the gratitude we feel toward those who steadfastly support us. The steadfast love is not selective. It doesn't favor the deserving and punish the unworthy. Sun rises on everyone, rain falls on all. Life is offered universally. This is not moral teaching, but meteorological fact with philosophical implications. Tonight, recognize the steadfast love that sustains your existence, not as supernatural gift, but as natural fact. The universe structured itself in ways that make your life possible. Reality organized itself in patterns that allow your consciousness. Existence committed itself to the possibility of your being. This didn't have to be. The universe could have been structured differently, hostile to life, incompatible with consciousness, unable to support flourishing. But it isn't. It's structured in ways that make your existence possible, your awareness actual, your flourishing potential. Sleep in the steadfast love. Sleep knowing you are held by reality's persistent commitment to life. Sleep recognizing that existence itself has oriented toward the possibility of your being in ways that, if exhibited by a person, you would call devoted, committed, loving. From generation to generation. The wisdom you inherit comes from countless generations who learned through experience, who discovered through trial and error, who found through long observation what works and what doesn't. You are not the first to face difficulty. You are not the first to seek meaning. You are not the first to wonder how to live well. Countless humans before you have grappled with these same fundamental questions. And their accumulated learning is available to you, not as fixed doctrine, but as tested wisdom. Not as rigid rules, but as reliable patterns. Not as imposed law, but as observed truth. From generation to generation, certain insights get transmitted because they prove valuable across different times, different places, different circumstances. The specific forms change, the particular expressions vary. But underneath the diversity of cultural expression, certain principles persist because they correspond to reality. You can learn from this accumulated wisdom. You can benefit from insights that have been tested across thousands of years. You can align with patterns that have proven sustainable across countless generations. But you also have responsibility to refine this wisdom based on your own experience. Not everything transmitted from previous generations is true. Not all inherited patterns are healthy. Not every traditional practice is sustainable. Your task is to receive the wisdom of previous generations with gratitude while also testing it against your own experience. To honor what has proven true while also correcting what has proven false. To build on solid foundations while also adapting to new understanding. Tonight, feel yourself as one link in a long chain of human seeking, struggling, learning, growing. You are connected backward to countless generations who came before you, and you are connected forward to countless generations who will come after you. What you learn matters not just for you, but for those who come after. What you discover has potential to contribute to the accumulating wisdom that will be inherited by future generations. Sleep as one link in a long chain. Sleep as one who receives from those before and contributes to those after. Sleep knowing that you are part of a vast human project of learning how to live well, a project that spans generations and continues beyond your individual life. From everlasting to everlasting. Before the mountains were formed, before the earth came into being, before time began its march, the fundamental patterns that govern existence were already present. And after the mountains erode, after the earth is gone, after time has run its course, those same fundamental patterns will remain. This is what everlasting means in non-religious language. Not eternal in the sense of supernatural timelessness, but enduring in the sense of fundamental and unchanging patterns that don't depend on any particular instance of their manifestation. The laws of physics don't change when stars are born or die. The principles of mathematics don't vary based on who's calculating. The nature of consciousness doesn't shift based on which organism exhibits it. These patterns are what they are, not because anyone decreed them, but because they are the fundamental structure of reality itself. You exist within these patterns temporarily. You manifest consciousness for a brief time. You participate in reality for limited duration. But the patterns themselves continue before you, during you, after you. This could feel depressing, the sense that you don't matter, that your individual existence is insignificant against the backdrop of eternal patterns. But it can also feel liberating. You don't have to carry the weight of making reality work. You don't have to sustain the patterns that hold everything. You don't have to maintain the fundamental structures. They maintain themselves. They hold you. They continue regardless of your effort or lack thereof. Your task is simply to align with patterns that were already present when you arrived and will continue after you're gone. Not to create them, but to recognize them. Not to sustain them, but to cooperate with them. Tonight, release the burden of thinking everything depends on you. Release the weight of believing you must maintain reality through your effort. Release the anxiety that if you stop trying, everything will fall apart. The patterns that sustain existence will continue whether you understand them or not, whether you align with them or not, whether you acknowledge them or not. Your choice is simply whether to cooperate with what already is or exhaust yourself resisting it. Sleep held by patterns that were present before you were born. Sleep knowing that fundamental structures will continue after you're gone. Sleep releasing the impossible burden of sustaining reality and accepting the possible task of aligning with it. Dwelling in shelter. There is shelter available, protection offered. Safety accessible. Not because you earned it, but because you need it, and reality has structured itself in ways that provide what consciousness requires. The shelter is not a physical location, but a state of alignment, being connected to what is most real, oriented toward what is most fundamental, relating to what is most true. When you dwell in this alignment, threats that would destroy you find no purchase. Not because you're supernaturally protected, but because your foundation is solid enough that surface storms cannot reach it. The person aligned with reality can endure what would shatter the person built on illusion. The one connected to truth can survive what would destroy the one invested in lies. The consciousness rooted in what is real can withstand what would overwhelm the one attached to what is temporary. This doesn't mean nothing bad happens. This means that what happens cannot reach your deepest foundation, cannot touch your truest self, cannot destroy your essential being. You will face difficulty. You will encounter threats. You will experience suffering. But if you dwell in alignment with reality, these cannot destroy what is most fundamental about you: your capacity for awareness, your connection to existence, your participation in being. Tonight, find the shelter not by going somewhere else, but by recognizing where you already are, held by existence itself, sustained by reality, connected to the fundamental patterns that allow for consciousness. This shelter isn't elsewhere. It's the ground you're already standing on when you recognize it. It's the support that's already holding you when you acknowledge it. It's the protection that's already surrounding you when you see it. Sleep in the shelter. Sleep under protection. Sleep knowing you are held by what cannot be shaken, sustained by what is most fundamental, carried by what is most real. The righteous flourish. Those who live aligned with reality, not perfectly but generally, not flawlessly but genuinely, these flourish in ways that those living in persistent misalignment do not. The flourishing is not always external. It's not measured by wealth or status or worldly success. It's internal, the experience of coherence, the sense of integrity, the reality of peace that comes from alignment. The person who lives with integrity may not be rich, but they can trust themselves. The one who maintains honesty may not be powerful, but they have genuine relationships. The individual who acts justly may not be celebrated, but they can sleep at night. This is flourishing, not in the sense of having everything you want, but in the sense of being able to live with yourself, trust yourself, know yourself. The righteous are planted like trees, meaning they're rooted, grounded, drawing nourishment from deep sources, growing steadily, even if not spectacularly. They bear fruit in season, meaning their contributions come naturally from alignment rather than being forced from performance, organically from being rather than artificially from doing. Their leaves don't wither, meaning they maintain vitality even through dry periods, sustain life even when external conditions are harsh, continue growing even when growth is not obvious. This is not magical. This is the natural result of living aligned with patterns that actually sustain flourishing. Not guaranteed outcomes, but increased probability. Not perfect results, but generally better consequences. Tonight, if you live with general alignment, if you maintain basic integrity even when it's costly, if you sustain fundamental honesty even when lies would be easier, if you keep choosing what's real even when illusion would be more comfortable, you are planted like a tree. The flourishing may not be obvious, the fruit may not be dramatic, the growth may not be spectacular, but it's real, it's sustainable, it's based on solid foundation. Sleep as one who is planted. Sleep as one whose roots go deep. Sleep as one who draws from sources that sustain genuine flourishing rather than sources that produce only temporary success. Come sing. Come with songs. Come with joy. Come with exuberance. Come celebrating existence itself. Not because everything is perfect. Not because all suffering has ended. Not because every problem has been solved. But because reality includes reasons for celebration alongside reasons for lament, includes gifts alongside losses, includes beauty alongside hardship. To come singing is to acknowledge the full complexity of existence, both the difficulty and the delight, both the pain and the pleasure, both what's broken and what's beautiful. We need permission for joy. We've been trained to suspect celebration, to think that serious people focus only on serious matters, to believe that acknowledging goodness somehow minimizes suffering. But this is false. Celebrating what's good doesn't deny what's hard. Acknowledging beauty doesn't ignore ugliness. Finding reasons for joy doesn't erase causes for sorrow. Reality is complex. Experience includes multiple dimensions. Life offers both tears and laughter, both mourning and dancing, both loss and gift. Come singing to acknowledge all of it, to celebrate what deserves celebration, while also acknowledging what deserves lament. The song is not denial, it's fullness. Its capacity to hold complexity. Its willingness to receive whatever life offers, rather than only what you prefer. Tonight, let yourself sing, even if only internally, even if only briefly, even if quietly. Let yourself acknowledge that alongside all the difficulty you face, there are also reasons for gratitude, moments of beauty, experiences of genuine goodness. The singing doesn't solve problems. It doesn't end suffering. It doesn't fix what's broken, but it prevents the narrative from being only about difficulty, only about loss, only about what's wrong. Sleep as one who can sing. Sleep as one who acknowledges the full complexity of existence. Sleep as one who celebrates goodness while also honoring difficulty, who finds reasons for joy while also recognizing causes for sorrow. New song. Again, sing to reality a new song, not the old tired narratives, not the worn-out stories, not the familiar complaints and rehearsed grievances. What is your new song? What fresh perspective has emerged? What original insight has arisen from your unique experience? The old songs have their place. Traditional wisdom carries accumulated learning. Inherited understanding provides tested foundations. The songs of previous generations transmit valuable insights. But you also have your own song, the understanding that has emerged from your particular journey, the insights that have arisen from your specific experience, the wisdom that belongs uniquely to you. This new song is not arrogance, it's honesty. It's acknowledgement that your experience has taught you things worth knowing, that your journey has revealed truths worth honoring, that your life has generated insights worth sharing. The new song doesn't reject the old, it builds on it. It refines it. It adds to it based on new experience, fresh observation, contemporary encounter with reality. Each generation must sing its own song while also honoring songs of previous generations. Each individual must find their own voice while also respecting voices of the community. Each person must discover their own truth while also learning from shared wisdom. Tonight, honor your new song. Honor what you've learned that is genuinely yours. Honor the insights that have emerged from your particular encounter with reality. Your song may not be impressive to others. It may not sound sophisticated or profound. But if it's genuinely yours, if it comes from real learning rather than mere repetition, it contributes to the great chorus of human seeking, the vast symphony of consciousness trying to understand existence. Sleep as one who has their own song. Sleep as one whose experience has generated insights worth honoring. Sleep as one who contributes to human understanding through their own particular encounter with reality. Power and majesty. Reality has majesty. Existence has power. The universe exhibits grandeur that dwarfs all human pretension. Look at the night sky, billions of galaxies, trillions of stars, distances so vast that light takes billions of years to traverse them. Look at biological complexity, cells containing molecular machinery of staggering intricacy. Ecosystems maintaining balance through countless interactions. Evolution producing consciousness from matter. Look at mathematical elegance. Physical laws governing everything from quarks to galaxies. Patterns underlying apparent chaos. Order emerging from complexity. This is majesty, not in the sense of kingly rule, but in the sense of awesome grandeur, overwhelming beauty, stunning complexity. And you participate in this. Your consciousness is part of this majesty. Your awareness is an expression of this power. Your being is woven into this grandeur. This is not about believing in supernatural deity. This is about recognizing that reality itself. The simple fact of existence, the basic structure of the universe, the fundamental patterns that govern everything, exhibits qualities that inspire awe, demand respect, deserve acknowledgement. Tonight, let yourself feel small before the vastness. Let yourself be humbled by the complexity. Let yourself acknowledge the majesty of existence itself. This smallness is not shameful. This humility is not weakness. This acknowledgement is simply accurate assessment of your place in the vast scheme of things. You are tiny and temporary, and you are remarkable and precious. Both are true. Holding both is wisdom. Sleep as one small part of something vast. Sleep as one brief moment in something eternal. Sleep as one conscious expression of something magnificent beyond comprehension. Stability in change. Everything changes. This is the only constant. This is the reliable pattern. This is what you can count on. That change will continue. That nothing stays the same. That all things in form are subject to transformation. But within the constant change, there are stable patterns. Underneath the shifting surface, there are reliable structures. Beneath the endless variation, there are consistent principles. The seasons change, but the pattern of seasons remains. Individual lives begin and end, but life itself continues. Specific forms arise and dissolve, but the capacity for form persists. This is stability in change. Not the stability of nothing ever shifting, but the stability of consistent patterns within continuous transformation. You can trust these patterns. You can rely on these structures. You can count on these principles, not because they prevent change, but because they govern change, not because they stop transformation, but because they structure it. The sun will rise tomorrow, not because of divine promise, but because of planetary rotation. Breath will continue, not because of supernatural intervention, but because of autonomic nervous system. Consciousness will persist through sleep and waking, not because of miraculous preservation, but because of neural patterns that maintain continuity. These are stable patterns within constant change. These are reliable structures within endless transformation. These are consistent principles within continuous variation. Tonight, release the demand for nothing to change. Release the fantasy of permanent stability. Release the wish for transformation to stop. Instead, trust the stable patterns within change. Rely on consistent structures within transformation. Count on reliable principles within variation. Sleep knowing that tomorrow will be different from today. Sleep trusting that reliable patterns will continue even as specific forms change. Sleep resting on stability that doesn't require permanence, on structure that allows transformation, on principles that govern rather than prevent change. Surrounded by faithfulness. You are surrounded by faithfulness, not divine loyalty, but natural reliability, not supernatural commitment, but physical dependability, not religious fidelity, but mathematical consistency. The laws of physics are faithful. They operate the same way everywhere, every time, for everyone. Gravity doesn't play favorites. Thermodynamics doesn't change its mind. Electromagnetism doesn't vary its behavior based on who's observing. Your body is faithful. It maintains countless processes without your awareness or effort. It heals without your direction. It balances chemistry, regulates temperature, fights infection, repairs damage, all faithfully, reliably, continuously. The patterns that sustain existence are faithful. They don't abandon their nature. They don't violate their structure. They don't change their fundamental character. This faithfulness is not moral virtue, it's physical fact. But it's reliable enough to trust, consistent enough to depend on, stable enough to build your life upon. You cannot control whether people are faithful. You cannot guarantee that circumstances will remain stable. You cannot ensure that relationships will last. These are variable, changeable, subject to human choice and external circumstance. But you can trust that physical laws will continue operating, that biological processes will keep functioning, that mathematical patterns will remain consistent. These are faithful in ways that nothing subject to human choice can be. Tonight, let yourself be held by this faithfulness. Let yourself rest in this reliability. Let yourself trust this dependability. You are not ultimately alone, even when people abandon you. You are not unsupported, even when circumstances fail you. You are not without foundation, even when relationships crumble. The faithfulness that surrounds you is not personal affection, but it's real support. It's not emotional commitment, but it's reliable structure. It's not chosen loyalty, but it's dependable pattern. Sleep surrounded by faithfulness. Sleep held by reliability. Sleep trusting the consistent patterns that will continue operating whether you acknowledge them or not, whether you appreciate them or not, whether you notice them or not. The sea's testimony. The sea roars, the waves crash. The tides rise and fall. The ocean testifies to forces larger than human control, to patterns beyond human management, to realities that dwarf human pretension. You cannot stop the tides. You cannot calm the storms. You cannot control the ocean. You can only acknowledge its power, respect its force, recognize its majesty. This is wisdom, knowing what you control and what you don't, recognizing where your power ends and where you must simply witness, acknowledging the vast portions of reality that operate completely independent of your preference or effort. The sea doesn't care what you think. The waves don't adjust to your convenience. The tides don't consult your schedule. They simply are, powerful, indifferent, majestic. This indifference is not cruelty, it's simply how reality works. Most of existence operates without reference to human concerns, without regard for human preferences, without awareness of human existence. The sea roared before humans appeared. It will roar after humans are gone. Your individual life is a tiny blip in the vast age of oceans, a brief moment in the endless rolling of waves. This could feel depressing, the sense that you don't matter, that your concerns are insignificant, that the universe doesn't care. But it can also feel liberating. You are not responsible for the ocean. You don't have to control the tides. You are not required to manage forces that vastly exceed your capacity. Your task is simply to witness, to acknowledge, to respect, to recognize what is beyond your control and stop wasting energy trying to manage it. To see what is larger than yourself and find appropriate humility before it. Tonight, hear the sea's testimony. Let it remind you of forces beyond your control, of realities larger than your concerns, of patterns that operate independent of your preferences. Let this humble you without destroying you. Let this remind you of your limits without denying your value. Let this place you accurately in the vast scheme of things, small but not meaningless, temporary but not worthless, limited but not useless. Sleep to the sound of waves that were roaring before you were born. Sleep knowing the tides will continue after you're gone. Sleep acknowledging forces beyond your control and finding peace in recognizing what is not yours to manage. Enter with thanksgiving. Enter reality with thanksgiving. Approach existence with gratitude. Engage life with appreciation. Not because everything is perfect. Not because all your needs are met. Not because every desire is fulfilled. But because you have been given the remarkable gift of consciousness, of awareness, of being alive to experience anything at all. The alternative to existence is nothing. The alternative to consciousness is no experience whatsoever. The alternative to being alive is never having been at all. Against that backdrop, even difficult existence is gift. Even painful awareness is remarkable. Even struggling life is precious. This doesn't minimize suffering. This doesn't dismiss difficulty. This doesn't pretend pain isn't real. This simply acknowledges that the ability to experience anything, including suffering, is itself extraordinary. You could have been nothing. You could have never existed. You could have never been conscious. But you are, you do, you have been. Enter this reality with thanksgiving, not for specific circumstances which may be terrible, but for the simple fact of being, of awareness, of participation in existence. The thanksgiving transforms how you relate to life. Instead of approaching as consumer demanding satisfaction, you approach as recipient acknowledging gift. Instead of relating as entitled person insisting on preferences being met, you relate as grateful being appreciating what has been offered. This doesn't make you passive. This doesn't require accepting harmful circumstances. This doesn't mean you stop working for improvement. But it does change your fundamental posture. You work for change from gratitude rather than from entitlement. You seek improvement from appreciation rather than from resentment. You pursue better circumstances from recognition of gift rather than from insistence on rights. Tonight, enter your rest with thanksgiving. Approach your sleep with gratitude. Engage this time of restoration with appreciation. You have been given another day of consciousness. You have experienced another period of awareness. You have participated in another cycle of existence. This is not nothing. This is remarkable. This deserves acknowledgement. Sleep with thanksgiving. Sleep with gratitude. Sleep with appreciation for the simple, profound, extraordinary gift of being conscious, being alive, being here at all. The practice of justice. Justice is not just an ideal to believe in, it's a practice to engage in. It's something you do, not just something you wish for. The practice of justice means treating people fairly in your actual interactions, paying what you owe, keeping your word, dealing honestly, respecting rights, honoring boundaries, acknowledging harms, making amends where possible. This is not about perfect righteousness. This is about basic fairness in concrete situations. This is about actually being just in the specific circumstances you face, rather than only advocating for justice in abstract terms. You cannot control whether justice prevails globally. You cannot ensure that all wrongs are righted. You cannot guarantee that fair treatment is universal. But you can practice justice in your corner of reality. You can deal fairly with people you encounter. You can honor your commitments in specific situations. You can acknowledge harms you cause and make concrete amends. This practice builds the foundation for broader justice. Societies become more fair when individuals practice fairness. Systems become more just when people act justly. Culture shifts toward justice when enough people engage in its practice. But even if broader justice never comes, even if societies remain unfair, systems stay unjust, culture resists transformation, your practice of justice still matters. It matters because it's right regardless of outcome. It matters because it maintains your integrity regardless of others' choices. It matters because it's what you control regardless of larger patterns. Tonight, consider, do you practice justice or only wish for it? Do you act fairly or only demand fairness from others? Do you engage in concrete just behavior or only advocate for abstract justice? The practice is what counts. The actual behavior is what matters. The specific actions are what create justice in the world rather than mere discussion of justice as concept. Sleep as one who practices justice. Sleep as one whose actual behavior embodies fairness. Sleep as one who does what's right in concrete situations rather than only believes what's right in abstract terms. The upward journey. There is a journey that humans make from confusion toward clarity, from ignorance toward understanding, from unconsciousness toward awareness. This is not a physical journey, but an internal one, a movement through states of consciousness, through levels of insight, through degrees of awakening. This journey is both gradual and sudden. You spend years slowly learning, incrementally growing, gradually developing, and then suddenly something clicks, a perspective shifts, and you see what you couldn't see before even though it was always right in front of you. These moments of sudden insight don't come from nowhere. They are prepared by the long, slow work of paying attention, of remaining curious, of staying open. The breakthrough is sudden, but the foundation is gradual. You are on this journey whether you recognize it or not. Every experience is teaching you something. Every difficulty is revealing something. Every moment is offering something if you are willing to receive it. The question is not whether you are on the journey, you are simply by virtue of being alive and conscious. The question is whether you are paying attention to what the journey is showing you. Tonight, recognize that you are not in the same place you were a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. You have learned things. You have grown in ways you may not fully recognize. You have developed capacities you didn't have before. This is the ascent, not to some supernatural realm, but to greater understanding, deeper wisdom, more profound awareness of what is real and what matters. Sleep as one who is on a journey. Sleep as one who is learning and growing. Sleep as one who is ascending toward greater understanding, even when the ascent feels like descent, even when growth feels like loss, even when progress feels like regression. The journey continues. The ascent proceeds. The learning deepens. Trust the process even when you cannot see the destination. Unless the foundation is right. You can build the most impressive structure, but if the foundation is faulty, it will eventually collapse. You can achieve remarkable success, but if it's built on lies, it will ultimately fail. You can create something that looks solid, but if it's not rooted in reality, it will not last. This is true for buildings and businesses. It's true for relationships and reputations. It's true for lives and societies. The foundation matters most. Not the visible structure, but the invisible support. Not what everyone can see, but what no one notices. Not the impressive exterior, but the solid basis. What is your life built on? What is the foundation of your understanding? What supports your sense of meaning and purpose? If your foundation is external achievement, what happens when achievement becomes impossible? If your foundation is others' approval, what happens when approval is withdrawn? If your foundation is your own competence, what happens when you face situations beyond your capacity? Every external foundation can crumble. Every circumstantial support can fail. Every achievement can be lost. Every approval withdrawn. Every competence exceeded. The only foundation that cannot be shaken is reality itself. Truth that corresponds to what actually is. Awareness that you are conscious. Connection to the simple fact of existence. Everything else can be taken away. Every other foundation can crumble. But as long as you are alive, you are conscious. As long as you exist, you are connected to existence. As long as you are aware, you have access to awareness. This is the unshakable foundation. Not impressive, not dramatic, but absolutely solid. Unless reality itself supports what you build, you labor in vain. Unless truth undergirds your understanding, your knowledge is unstable. Unless awareness grounds your identity, your sense of self is precarious. Tonight, examine what your life is actually built on. Not what you wish it were built on. Not what you think it should be built on. But what actually supports you when everything else fails. Is your foundation solid? Is it rooted in reality? Will it hold when tested? The testing will come. Circumstances will shift. Supports will fail. Everything built on faulty foundation will eventually show its weakness. But what is built on reality itself, on truth, on awareness, on the simple fact of existence, this will hold. Not because it's protected by supernatural power, but because it's grounded in what cannot be shaken. Sleep as one who builds on solid ground. Sleep as one whose foundation is truth rather than preference. Sleep as one who is rooted in what cannot be shaken because it is what is most fundamentally real. Blessed are those who trust. Those who trust in what is real rather than in illusion are blessed, not because they receive supernatural rewards, but because they align with how things actually work, which naturally produces better outcomes. Those who orient toward truth rather than toward comfort are blessed, not because truth is always pleasant, but because it is reliable, and reliability produces stability even in difficulty. Those who live with integrity rather than with expediency are blessed, not because integrity guarantees success, but because it creates internal coherence, and coherence produces peace even in challenging circumstances. This is not religious doctrine, but observable pattern. Alignment with reality works better than denial of reality. This is simply true. You can verify it through observation and experience. The person who trusts what is real may face difficulty, but they are not constantly fighting against reality itself. The one who aligns with truth may encounter hardship, but they are not also battling the consequences of living in denial. The blessing is not protection from all harm. The blessing is the natural advantage of cooperating with reality rather than resisting it, of building on solid foundation rather than on illusion, of living in truth rather than in fantasy. Think of it this way: if you trust that gravity exists and act accordingly, you are blessed by not constantly falling. Not because gravity rewards your trust, but because acknowledging reality allows you to navigate it successfully. If you trust that honesty produces better relationships than deception and act accordingly, you are blessed by having more genuine connections. Not because honesty magically attracts good people, but because trust is built on truth and sustainable relationships require trust. If you trust that actions have consequences and choose accordingly, you are blessed by avoiding much preventable suffering. Not because reality is rewarding your trust, but because alignment with how things actually work naturally produces better outcomes than misalignment. Tonight, you are blessed if you seek truth even when it's uncomfortable, if you live with integrity even when it costs you something, if you trust what is real even when illusion would be more pleasant. Not blessed in the sense of being divinely favored. Blessed in the sense of experiencing the natural benefits of alignment with reality. Sleep as one who is blessed. Sleep as one whose choices align with what works. Sleep as one who trusts what is real and receives the natural benefits of that trust. Song of Creation. Existence itself is remarkable. The fact that anything exists rather than nothing is the most basic and most profound mystery. You are part of this existence. You are made of atoms forged in ancient stars. You are organized by patterns that emerged over billions of years of evolution. You are conscious. Matter become aware of itself. This is not religious sentiment. This is scientific observation combined with philosophical wonder. The universe is 13.8 billion years old. You are the latest iteration of a process that has been unfolding since the beginning. Your consciousness is perhaps the most remarkable thing we know of in the entire cosmos. As far as we can tell, most of reality is not aware of itself. Stars burn, but don't know they're burning. Galaxies spiral, but don't experience their spiraling. Planets orbit, but don't reflect on their orbiting. But you do. You are aware. You experience. You reflect. You wonder. You question. You seek meaning. This capacity is so improbable, so extraordinary, so precious that it justifies your existence all by itself. You don't need to achieve anything else to matter. The simple fact that you are conscious is already significance enough. Consider the odds against your existence. If the universe were slightly different, if physical constants were minutely altered, no complex structures could form. No stars. No planets. No life. No consciousness. But the universe is structured in the precise way necessary for consciousness to emerge. This is either the most remarkable coincidence imaginable or evidence of something worth calling meaningful, purposeful, oriented toward the possibility of awareness. You are the universe becoming conscious of itself. You are existence waking up to its own nature. You are matter organized into a form capable of asking, what is this? Why is this? How is this? This is the song of creation, not in the sense of supernatural origin, but in the sense of ongoing emergence, continuous unfolding, persistent arising of complexity from simplicity, consciousness from matter, meaning from mechanism. Tonight, feel wonder at your own existence. Not pride or superiority, but genuine amazement that you are here, that you are aware, that you are capable of experiencing this moment. You are improbable. You are extraordinary. You are the universe's way of knowing itself. Sleep as one who is part of something vast. Sleep as one who participates in the great mystery of existence itself. Sleep as one whose consciousness is precious beyond measure simply by existing, simply by being aware. The limits of human effort. Unless reality supports what you build in vain. Unless your efforts align with what actually works, you labor uselessly. Unless your activity flows from genuine understanding rather than anxious striving, you exhaust yourself without accomplishing what matters most. This is hard to accept in a culture that worships productivity, that measures worth by output, that values busyness over being. We are trained to believe that more effort always produces better results, that harder work inevitably leads to greater success. But this is not true. Misguided effort, no matter how intense, produces poor results. Working hard in the wrong direction gets you efficiently to the wrong destination. Striving anxiously rarely produces what relaxed competence easily accomplishes. There is wisdom in recognizing the limits of personal effort. There is maturity in acknowledging that not everything yields to force. There is insight in understanding that some things can only be received, not achieved. You cannot force sleep. You cannot manufacture peace. You cannot create genuine rest through effort. These come only through release, through letting go, through trusting enough to stop trying so hard. You cannot make someone love you through effort. You cannot force insight through striving. You cannot achieve authenticity through performance. The most important things in life resist being grasped. They can only be received. Rest is one of these things. Love is another. Peace, joy, genuine connection, authentic presence, deep understanding. All of these come not through more effort, but through right relationship, with yourself, with others, with reality itself. Tonight, stop striving. Stop pushing. Stop trying to accomplish through force what can only be received through release. Let your body rest without having to earn that rest. Let your mind quiet without having to achieve that quiet. Let yourself simply be held without having to hold yourself. The promise is simple but profound. Those who trust enough to stop striving will find what striving can never produce. Those who release enough to let go will receive what grasping can never attain. Those who rest will be restored in ways that effort can never accomplish. Sleep as one who has stopped striving. Sleep as one who recognizes the limits of effort. Sleep as one who receives what cannot be achieved, what cannot be forced, what can only be allowed. The quiet life. There is profound value in the ordinary, in the everyday, in the simple routines of life lived well. Not everything has to be dramatic or impressive or significant in others' eyes. The person who wakes each day and tends to what is theirs to tend, who cares for their body, their relationships, their work, their environment with steady attention, this person is living well even if they never accomplish anything that makes headlines. The person who shows up consistently, who keeps their commitments, who does what they said they would do, this person is building something solid even if it's not visible or impressive. The person who treats others with basic decency, who speaks truth, who lives with integrity in small things, this person is creating a life of genuine value even if they're never recognized or celebrated. Most of life is not dramatic. Most days are ordinary. Most moments are unremarkable. But these ordinary days, lived with basic integrity and simple kindness, accumulate into lives of genuine substance. The quiet life is not lesser than the dramatic life. The steady person is not inferior to the spectacular person. The one who does small things well is not worth less than the one who does big things impressively. In fact, the opposite may be true. The foundation of every healthy society is people living quiet lives well, working honestly, treating others decently, maintaining basic integrity in unremarkable circumstances. Without these quiet people doing ordinary things with basic competence and simple kindness, no amount of spectacular achievement matters. The impressive structures collapse without ordinary maintenance. The dramatic successes fail without steady support. Tonight, honor your own quiet consistency. Honor the small ways you show up, the ordinary ways you contribute, the unremarkable ways you live with integrity. You don't have to be extraordinary to live well. You don't have to achieve greatness to have value. You don't have to accomplish impressive things to matter. Simply living with basic decency, showing up consistently, treating others well, maintaining integrity in ordinary things, this is enough. This is everything. The quiet life, lived well, is profound achievement regardless of whether anyone notices or celebrates it. The steady person, reliable and decent, is precious beyond measure regardless of whether they're ever recognized. Sleep as one who honors the ordinary. Sleep as one who values consistency over drama. Sleep as one who recognizes that the quiet life, lived well, is profound achievement in itself. Despite long opposition, you have faced opposition for a long time. People or circumstances have worked against you. Difficulties have persisted. Challenges have not relented. And yet you are still here, still breathing, still conscious, still continuing. This is itself a form of victory, not the kind anyone celebrates, not the kind that gets recognized, but real nonetheless. You have survived what opposed you. You have endured what tried to destroy you. You have continued despite forces that worked against your continuation. This reveals something about you. You have more resilience than you give yourself credit for, more strength than you recognize in yourself, more capacity than you acknowledge. The opposition has not destroyed you. This means you are stronger than it is. The challenges have not defeated you. This means you have resources that exceed them. The difficulties have not broken you. This means your foundation is more solid than you realize. This is not to minimize ongoing struggle. This is not to pretend opposition doesn't hurt. This is not to deny that continuing is hard. But it is to acknowledge truth. You are still here, still capable, still continuing. This is evidence of strength, proof of capacity, demonstration of resilience. Tonight, acknowledge your own survival. Not to become proud, but to recognize fact. Not to inflate yourself, but to see yourself accurately. You have survived 100% of your worst days so far. This is not opinion. This is data. You have endured everything that has tried to break you. This is not speculation. This is evidence. The opposition may continue. The challenges may persist. The difficulties may not relent. But you have demonstrated capacity to continue despite them. You have proven ability to survive what seems unsurvivable, to endure what feels unendurable. Sleep as one who has faced long opposition and remained standing. Sleep as one who has endured persistent challenge and continued anyway. Sleep as one whose very existence is testament to resilience, to strength, to capacity that exceeds whatever has tried to destroy it. From the depths, from the deepest places of human experience, from the bottom of despair, from the pit of darkness, from the depths where light seems impossibly distant, the cry rises, "Help! Save me! Hear me! Rescue me!" This is the voice of genuine extremity. Not mild preference or gentle request, but desperate plea from someone who has reached their limit, who has exhausted their resources, who has nothing left to give. If you are in these depths right now, know that your cry is heard, not by a supernatural being who may or may not respond, but heard in the sense that your experience matters, your suffering is real, your need is legitimate. You are not being dramatic. You are not exaggerating. You are not weak or failing. You are experiencing what millions of humans have experienced before you and millions will experience after you. The depths, the pit, the darkness that seems to have no bottom and no exit. From these depths, hope seems impossible. Rescue seems unlikely. The idea that you will ever feel differently seems like cruel fantasy. And yet people do emerge from the depths. Not everyone, not always, not easily. But it happens. Rescue comes. Hope returns. Light reaches even the deepest darkness eventually. You cannot see this from where you are. You cannot believe it from the depths. But it is nonetheless true. This is not forever. This will shift. This state is not permanent, even though it feels eternal. If you are in the depths, all you can do is continue to breathe, continue to exist, continue one moment at a time. You don't have to feel hopeful. You don't have to believe rescue is coming. You just have to persist through this moment, and then the next, and then the next. And if you are not in the depths right now, remember that you might be someday, and others definitely are right now. Let this cultivate compassion rather than judgment, understanding rather than dismissiveness, support rather than advice giving. Those in the depths don't need platitudes. They need acknowledgement that the depths are real, that the suffering is legitimate, that the struggle is genuine. Sleep tonight, knowing that the depths are real, but so is emergence from them. Sleep knowing that darkness is profound, but so is eventual light. Sleep knowing that you can endure more than you think you can, survive what feels unsurvivable, continue when continuation seems impossible. The weaned child. A weaned child rests against its mother, not for milk, but for comfort, not for provision, but for presence, not for getting, but for being with. This is a profound shift in relationship, from need-based to presence-based, from what can be gotten to what simply is, from transaction to connection. You can relate to existence itself this way, not constantly demanding that it provide what you want, not always trying to get something from it, not approaching life as transaction where you're owed certain outcomes, but simply resting in the fact of being alive, of being conscious, of being part of this vast unfolding of existence. This doesn't mean you don't have needs. It doesn't mean you don't seek what you require. It means you can also simply be with what is, simply rest in existence itself, simply allow yourself to be held by reality without constantly demanding that it be different. The weaned child has learned that its most fundamental need, to be held, to belong, to be connected, is met not through getting, but through being with. The milk was never the point. The milk was just the vehicle for connection. The nourishment was important, but the presence was essential. In the same way, all the things you seek, success, security, satisfaction, happiness, these may be vehicles for what you really need, which is connection to what is real, presence to what is fundamental, belonging to existence itself. You can have all the milk, all the external goods, all the circumstantial comforts, all the achieved success, and still feel empty if you lack the essential thing, which is simply being present, simply being connected, simply resting in what is. Or you can have very little milk, few external goods, minimal circumstantial comfort, modest achieved success, and still feel full if you have the essential thing, which is presence, connection, belonging. Tonight, rest like a weaned child. Not because all your needs are met, but because you can experience being held even when you're not getting everything you want. Not because everything is perfect, but because being with what is can itself be a form of comfort. Let yourself be held by simple existence. Let yourself rest in basic being. Let yourself find comfort not in getting what you want, but in being part of what is. Sleep without demanding anything from this moment except the rest itself. Sleep without needing anything to change except your level of consciousness. Sleep as one who can be with what is, rather than constantly grasping for what isn't. Songs of ascent, blessing of community, protection through night, the builder of home, unless reality builds, arrows in hands, the blessing of work, the family gathered, blessed from youth, against all opposition, like olive shoots, may you see prosperity, they have afflicted me, I lift my eyes, out of the depths again, I wait for reality, childlike trust, hope in steadfast love, complete redemption. The longest meditation. This would traditionally be the longest psalm, a comprehensive meditation on wisdom, law, guidance, transformed into universal principles about alignment with reality, learning from experience, trusting observable patterns. This teaching is the heart of the ascent. the comprehensive exploration of what it means to live aligned with reality, to walk in truth, to orient your life toward what actually works. Every aspect of existence has patterns. Every dimension of life has principles. Every area of experience has wisdom available for those willing to observe, willing to learn, willing to adjust. The question is not whether these patterns exist. They do, observable and reliable. The question is whether you pay attention to them, whether you align with them, whether you let them guide your choices. This is the longest meditation because it requires the most attention, demands the most care, deserves the most consideration. Learning to live well is not quick work. Understanding reality deeply takes time. Aligning with truth comprehensively requires sustained effort. But the effort is worth it. Not because it produces perfect outcomes, but because it leads in a sustainable direction. Not because it guarantees success, but because it increases the probability of flourishing. Not because it prevents all suffering, but because it reduces unnecessary pain. Tonight, as you rest, let this long meditation settle into your deepest awareness. Let the invitation to align with reality, to learn from experience, to trust observable patterns become part of your foundational orientation. You don't have to master everything tonight. You don't have to understand completely. You simply have to remain willing to observe, willing to learn, willing to adjust when evidence shows a better way. Sleep as one who is engaged in the long work of learning to live well. Sleep as one who values alignment over preference, truth over comfort, sustainable patterns over convenient shortcuts. Part 6 complete, ascending toward final praises. I lift my eyes. To where do you lift your eyes when you need help? Where do you turn your attention when you seek support? What do you orient toward when you require strength? Some lift their eyes to mountains, to nature's grandeur that reminds them of forces larger than their individual concerns, to beauty that transcends human struggle, to permanence that outlasts temporary difficulty. Some lift their eyes to the sky, to vastness that puts problems in perspective, to stars that have burned for billions of years before human worry existed, to space that will continue long after individual suffering has passed. Some lift their eyes to horizons, to the promise of new possibilities beyond current limitations, to the reminder that what is visible now is not all that exists, to the hope that lies beyond present seeing. Where you lift your eyes matters. Not because looking in certain directions magically solves problems, but because orientation shapes experience, attention directs consciousness, focus determines what becomes available to awareness. If you lift your eyes only to your own problems, you see only problems. If you lift your eyes only to human failures, you see only failure. If you lift your eyes only to immediate circumstances, you lose perspective that broader context provides. But if you lift your eyes to something larger, to nature, to cosmos, to the vast patterns that hold temporary suffering, perspective shifts. Not that problems disappear, but that they're held within larger context. Not that pain ends, but that it's seen as part of broader reality that includes more than just suffering. Help comes not from the mountains or sky, but from recognizing that you are part of something vaster than your individual struggle, connected to patterns more enduring than temporary difficulty, held by reality more fundamental than current circumstances. Tonight, lift your eyes. Not literally, you can do this with eyes closed in darkness. Lift your attention. Lift your awareness. Lift your orientation. Turn from exclusive focus on problems to include awareness of context. Shift from narrow seeing of difficulty to include recognition of what holds difficulty. Expand from tight grip on suffering to include acknowledgement of what contains suffering. The help comes from this expansion. The support comes from this broader seeing. The strength comes from recognizing your place within larger patterns, your connection to vaster realities, your participation in something that transcends individual struggle. Sleep with eyes lifted, not to supernatural help, but to natural perspective, not to divine rescue, but to cosmic context, not to miraculous intervention, but to the simple truth that you are part of something larger than yourself. Unless reality builds the house, unless reality itself supports what you're building, you labor in vain. Unless fundamental patterns align with your efforts, you work uselessly. Unless natural laws cooperate with your plans, you exhaust yourself without sustainable result. This is humility, recognizing that your effort alone is insufficient, that your will alone cannot force outcomes, that you must work with reality rather than against it. The person who tries to build a house without understanding structural physics builds in vain. The structure may stand temporarily, but it will eventually collapse because it violates patterns that govern physical stability. The person who tries to build a life without understanding psychological patterns builds in vain. The life may function temporarily, but it will eventually fail because it violates patterns that govern human well-being. The person who tries to build relationships without understanding social dynamics builds in vain. The connections may last temporarily, but they will eventually dissolve because they violate patterns that govern human connection. Unless reality builds the house, meaning unless you cooperate with actual patterns, work with genuine principles, align with observable laws, your labor is wasted no matter how intense your effort. This doesn't mean you do nothing. It means you do your part while recognizing that your part is not the whole. You work, but you work with reality rather than against it. You build, but you build according to patterns that actually work rather than forcing structures that violate natural law. The watchman who guards the city watches in vain unless reality supports the city's existence. You can stand guard all night, but if the city is built on unsustainable patterns, if the foundations are faulty, if the structures violate natural law, your vigilance cannot save it. This is not pessimism. This is realism. Individual effort matters. But individual effort must align with larger patterns to produce sustainable results. Tonight, release the burden of thinking everything depends on your effort alone. Release the fantasy that you can force reality to conform to your will. Release the exhausting belief that success requires you to work against rather than with natural patterns. Instead, commit to working with reality, to learning actual patterns, to aligning with observable principles, to cooperating with natural laws rather than violating them. Sleep knowing that reality itself must support what you build for it to last. Sleep releasing the impossible burden of sustaining structures that violate natural law. Sleep accepting your part while acknowledging the larger patterns that must cooperate for sustainable success. The gift of children. There are things in life that come as gift rather than achievement, as grace rather than accomplishment, as blessing rather than result of effort. The metaphor of children captures this. They arrive not because you earned them, but because conditions aligned in ways beyond your control. They demand your attention whether convenient or not. They transform your life whether you're ready or not. In broader sense, many of life's most significant realities come this way. Not achieved, but received. Not earned, but given. Not controlled, but encountered. You didn't earn your consciousness. You received it as gift, the remarkable capacity to be aware, to experience, to be present to existence. You did nothing to deserve this. You simply found yourself alive and conscious. You didn't earn most of what sustains you. The air you breathe, the ecosystem that supports life, the accumulated knowledge you inherit, the language you speak, all gifts from processes and people beyond your individual effort. Even your greatest achievements rest on foundations you didn't build. Your work depends on others' work. Your ideas synthesize previous ideas. Your success relies on fortunate circumstances you didn't create. This recognition of gift doesn't minimize your effort or achievement. It simply places them in accurate context. You work hard and accomplish much, and you do so supported by vast infrastructure of gifts you never earned, standing on shoulders of countless others, operating within patterns you didn't create. The proper response to gift is gratitude. Not the forced gratitude of religious obligation, but the natural gratitude of honest recognition, appreciating how much you have that you didn't earn, how supported you are by what you didn't create, how blessed you are by gifts you simply received. Tonight, acknowledge what has come to you as gift rather than achievement. Your consciousness, your life, your capacity for experience, the support systems that sustain you, the knowledge you inherit, the beauty you encounter. None of this you earned. All of it you received. This is not to diminish your efforts, but to recognize how efforts alone are insufficient, how achievement always rests on gifts, how accomplishment depends on support beyond personal merit. Sleep in gratitude for gifts received. Sleep acknowledging how much of what sustains you came not through your effort, but through processes beyond your control. Sleep appreciating the vast infrastructure of gifts that make your life possible. Blessed from youth. From your earliest moments, you have been held by patterns larger than yourself. From your first breath, you have been sustained by processes beyond your control. From your beginning, you have been blessed by existence itself. This is not about individual religious experience, but about universal human reality. Every person who has lived long enough to reflect on their existence has been blessed from youth, sustained by biological processes, supported by social systems, held by physical patterns that make life possible. You didn't sustain yourself as an infant. Others fed you, protected you, kept you alive through your helplessness. You didn't create the language you learned. Community taught you, transmitted accumulated knowledge, gave you tools for thought itself. You didn't design your body's capacity to heal. Evolution produced this remarkable system through billions of years of trial and error, and you inherited it as gift. You didn't establish the atmospheric conditions that make breathing possible. Physical processes billions of years old created and sustain the air you need. From youth, from your earliest existence, you have been blessed. Not because you deserved it, not because you earned it, simply because existence is structured in ways that support consciousness, that enable life, that make your particular being possible. This recognition of being blessed from youth isn't about supernatural favor. It's about honest acknowledgement of how supported you have been from the beginning by processes, people, and patterns beyond your individual merit or effort. May you continue to be blessed. May the patterns that have sustained you from youth continue to hold you. May the processes that have supported your existence from the beginning persist in enabling your life. This is not prayer to supernatural power, but alignment with natural patterns, hoping that what has reliably operated to sustain life will continue operating, that what has dependably supported consciousness will continue supporting, that what has faithfully enabled your existence will continue enabling. Tonight, reflect on blessing that has sustained you from youth. The biological processes that have kept you alive. the social support that has held you, the physical patterns that have made your existence possible. None of this you created. All of this you inherited. All of this has blessed you from your beginning. Sleep knowing you have been held from the start. Sleep acknowledging support that predates your effort. Sleep in gratitude for blessing that has sustained you from youth until this very moment. Against all opposition, they have afflicted you from youth. Opposition has been present from early on. Difficulty has accompanied your journey from the beginning. Yet here you are, still breathing, still conscious, still continuing. The opposition has not prevailed. The affliction has not destroyed you. The difficulty has not defeated you. This is testimony to resilience you may not even recognize. This is evidence of strength you might not acknowledge. This is proof of capacity that exceeds whatever has opposed you. Those who oppose you may furrow your back, meaning they may leave marks, create scars, cause damage that persists. The affliction is real. The opposition leaves traces. The difficulty creates wounds. But they have not prevailed. You have survived. You have endured. You have continued despite all opposition. This doesn't minimize ongoing struggle. This doesn't pretend wounds don't hurt. This doesn't deny that opposition is hard. But it does acknowledge truth. You are still here. The opposition has tried to destroy you and has failed. The affliction has tried to break you and has not succeeded. The difficulty has tried to defeat you and you have not been defeated. What sustained you through all opposition? Not your strength alone, though your effort mattered. Not fortunate circumstances alone, though luck played its part. But something more fundamental. The patterns that sustain existence itself. The reality that holds consciousness. The ground of being that continues regardless of surface opposition. You have been held by something larger than individual strength. You have been sustained by something beyond fortunate circumstances. You have been carried by fundamental patterns that oppose you less than surface opposition does. Tonight, acknowledge opposition without being defined by it. Recognize affliction without being reduced to it. See difficulty without being destroyed by it. You are more than what opposes you. You are larger than what afflicts you. You are stronger than what tries to defeat you. The evidence is simple. You are still here. Despite all opposition, you continue. Against all affliction, you remain. Through all difficulty, you persist. Sleep as one who has survived all opposition so far. Sleep as one who has endured what tried to destroy you. Sleep as one whose continued existence is itself testimony to resilience, to strength, to capacity that exceeds whatever has opposed you. Complete redemption. Redemption means being brought back, restored to rightful state, rescued from diminished condition, and returned to proper fullness. In universal terms, redemption is not about religious salvation, but about restoration to alignment with reality, return to connection with what is real, recovery of authentic selfhood that has been lost or distorted. You have been redeemed, not by supernatural transaction, but by natural processes of healing, growth, learning, transformation. You have returned from states of misalignment. You have recovered from periods of disconnection. You have been restored from times of losing yourself. And you will be redeemed again. Because life is cyclical. You will stray from alignment and return to it. You will disconnect from what is real and reconnect. You will lose yourself and find yourself again. This is not failure. This is the rhythm of human existence. We align and misalign, connect and disconnect, find and lose and find again. The promise of complete redemption is not that you will never stray again, but that return is always possible, that reconnection is always available, that finding yourself again is always accessible. You are redeemed from the iniquities, meaning the misalignments, the ways you've lived contrary to your own nature, the patterns that have violated your authentic self, not because you're perfect now, but because you can return, you can reconnect, you can realign. Complete redemption doesn't mean final perfection. It means comprehensive possibility of return, full availability of restoration, total accessibility of reconnection whenever you recognize the need. Tonight, rest in complete redemption. Not in the sense that you'll never misalign again, but in the sense that realignment is always possible. Not that you'll never disconnect, but that reconnection is always available. Not that you'll never lose yourself, but that finding yourself again is always accessible. Sleep knowing you can return. Sleep trusting restoration is possible. Sleep in the promise that realignment with reality, reconnection with what is real, recovery of authentic self, these are always available regardless of how far you've strayed, how long you've been disconnected, how lost you've become. Complete redemption, full restoration, total possibility of return. This is your inheritance. This is your promise. This is your hope. Sleep in it. Rest in it. Trust it. Rest now. No more words. No more thinking. No more effort. Just breath. Just warmth. Just darkness holding you safely. Let the night take you. Let your body drop. Let your mind fade. Let sleep rise and cover everything. You are here. You are safe. You are done for today. Close your eyes. Fall. Drift. Sleep. Good night.